They thought they were gonna pull the song off the agenda. They kept it. Yeah, she said I'm good.
Refrain from making any personal comments about it, probably, but I can vote on it. I would think they're for the West State, probably the Karcher and Florida one, maybe.
Okay.
I haven't seen it. They'll hand it over to me. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, guys.
You're good.
I'm
ready?
doing it for good today.
Okay.
Yep, nope, you're good.
Right. Let me know when you're ready.
Thanks.
All right. Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting for Wednesday, July 26, 2023. I will ask for a roll call.
Zamora,
Here.
Harmon,
Here.
Larson,
Here.
Boutros.
Here.
All right. We have a full commission today. Any conflict of interest declarations from any of the commissioners? Seeing none, we'll move on. There's no special presentations, which moves us to consent agenda. So I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda, which is a past special meeting workshop minute.
Make a motion.
A motion for Commissioner Harmon,
Seconded.
second from Commissioner Boutros. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so opening statement. So a quasi-judicial, opening statement. Am I missing? All right. So this is a regular scheduled meeting of the Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission. We are served both in a decision-making capacity and an advisory capacity to the mayor and the city council. There are two types of public hearings that the commission conducts. The first is a legislative hearing whereby we formulate recommendations on certain land use requests. Our recommendations are then forwarded onward to the city council, who makes a decision on legislative matters. The second of the public hearing is judicial in nature, meaning that the requests are specific to a parcel of land. We are authorized to make decisions on requests for special use permits, variances, preliminary plat time extensions, and planned unit developments that do not involve the subdivision of land. However, any decision we make tonight is by no means final. Anyone that believes he or she has been aggrieved by our decision has the right to appeal to the city council on quasi-judicial requests that involve the subdivision of land, rezones, and annexation. We are authorized to only make recommendations to the city council, who will make the decision. The hearing procedures as required by the Idaho Code are as follows. Oral and written testimony will be accepted from those who have signed in to speak prior to the hearing being declared open. When providing testimony, please come to the podium and state your name and address, which will be included in the record. Staff will first present a report regarding the application being considered. Then we move to public testimony, which begins with the applicant or the applicant's representative presenting a summary of a request for no more than 10 minutes. Then the testimony in those in support will be taken, followed by those in neutral position, and finally those in opposition to the request. And all public testimony will be limited to 5 minutes or less. The applicant will be offered the opportunity to provide a rebuttal testimony. After the rebuttal is given, the public testimony portion will be to the public will be closed, and no new oral or written testimony will be allowed. All right. So with that, I'm going to move and open the public hearing for action item 1. This is a public hearing quasi-judicial case number CPM 22000005, ZON 22000008, SUP 22000019, PUD 22000007, SUB 22000027, AMD 2204, continued from May 24, 2023. This is Mason Associates on behalf of 44 North Idaho LLC is requesting approval of a comprehensive plan amendment, CPM 22000005, on the subject parcel from HC Highway Corridor to a future land use designation of CS Commercial and Service along Highway 55 on the northern portion, and an MDR, Medium Density Residential, future land use designation on the southern portion of the subject parcel, to include approval of resolution number 35-23. Concurrently, the applicant is requesting a rezone ZON 22000008 from R1 low density residential to a split zone of C2 community commercial on the northern portion and R2 medium density on the southern portion of the parcel, and approval for a planned use development PUD 22000007 and a preliminary plat SUB 22000027 for West Haven subdivision, a 55-plus mixed-use community with commercial and residential housing options and amenities, to include approval to amend an existing development agreement DA 0508 AMD 2204 to remove the parcel from the original development agreement and to create a new development agreement specific to the new proposed development plan. Additionally, the applicant is requesting a special use permit SUP 22000019 to allow for an assisted living facility within the requested C2 community commercial zone. West Haven is proposed to be constructed in a single phase and will include 215 residential lots, 2 commercial lots, and 32 common lots. The subject property is located at the southwest corner of Karcher Road and South Flora Avenue. Parcel number R32842000000, Caldwell, Idaho. All right. With that, staff report, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. Katie Wright, Associate Planner, 621 Cleveland Boulevard. This request before you is West Haven, AMD 2204, CPM 2205, ZON 2208, PUD 2207, SUB 2227, SUP 2219. This came before the P&Z Commission on May 24th, but was remanded to staff to resolve some outstanding concerns. Based on this analysis, those have been resolved. There have been 3 late exhibits showing plans and the renderings of commercial buildings, as well as the access that ITV has approved off of Highway 2022. This project is 37.68 acres located on the southwest corner of Karcher and Florida Avenue and was annexed into the city in 2005 with a DA associated with the annexation alone with no plan for future development. There was a request to amend the DA that was associated with the original annexation to remove this parcel and create a new DA associated with the rezone. The applicant is proposing the rezone of parcel R32842 from R1 low density residential to a split zone with the north 11.5 acres to C2 and the southern 26.18 acres to R2. The applicant is also requesting a comprehensive plan amendment to reflect the future designation to go from highway corridor to commercial and service and medium density residential to correlate with the rezone. The applicant is also requesting a mixed-use planned unit development with a preliminary plat. along with the approval of a special use permit to allow for an assisted living facility in the C2 zone. These are photos of the site. There was, on July 17th, a code violation opened for weeds on this property, but the applicant has mentioned they have taken precautions to alleviate this, and it will be resolved either currently or by before City Council. This is a 55 and older community that includes 215 townhomes, some of which are alley loaded. The residential density will be 8.22 dwelling units per acre, where 12 dwelling units per acre is allowed. They're including 11.52 total acres of commercial and amenities such as pickleball, playground, picnic structure, alley-loaded townhomes, fire pit, and bench seating are also included. An updated TIS was performed and reviewed by the City of Caldwell Engineering Department. Based on the Commission's request at the hearing in May, the applicant has increased their open space to meet the required 10%. They provide 10.28%, equaling about 2.69 acres of qualifying open space. The applicant is in compliance with all other landscaping and pathway requirements. There may be a need for a different land use buffer along the commercial area and the cemetery depending on future uses. The applicant does not meet the additional parking requirement for providing a parking lot adjacent to the residential that provides one per every 4 lot with frontage under 45 feet, which they are requesting a waiver for. Here are elevations of the single-family homes. Here's a site plan for the commercial paths provided as the late exhibit. This is one of the other late exhibits. It's some renderings of the commercial components. The proposed development is surrounded by R1, C2, C1 to the north, county single-family homes to the south, C1, C2, and highway corridor to the east, and county to the west. On the screen are the approved developments in the surrounding area. The current comp plan designation is highway corridor, which is typically used to identify key areas along a highway corridor which are highly visible or transitional in nature. The proposed comp plan designation and development are commercial and service and medium density residential, which are compatible with the surrounding designations. The proposed densities are in compliance with the comprehensive plan so long as the development proposes the commercial that they say on Karcher Road. Utilities are or will be provided to serve the proposed site and are or will be adequate to accommodate the proposed development. There have been no additional comments since the hearing in May. The requests for waivers are as follows. Waivers for a 45-foot lot frontage minimum to allow for lot frontages between 26 feet to 43 feet with the exception of corner lots. Waiver for the 6,000 square foot lot size minimum to allow for a minimum of 2,171 square feet. Waiver to not require the PUD parking requirement for one additional space to be provided for every 4 lots that have frontage less than 45 feet. Waiver to reduce the side setbacks to 0 for the townhome lots. Waiver to reduce front setbacks for alley-loaded townhomes from 20 to 10. These are the previous concerns that were brought from you guys back to the applicant that they worked with staff to alleviate. There were previous concerns due to the access connecting South Georgia, which was on Hillcrest Memorial's property, yet a right-of-way conveyance has been provided allowing this access to be constructed. The northern approach to this site onto Florida does not align with Generations Lane, located on the east side of Florida Avenue. And per the traffic impact study, this approach would be limited to right-in, right-out only at full build-out of Highway 55. Engineering does provide a condition that this will need to line up, but this has been alleviated or at least helped due to the access granted off of Karcher, which is provided as one of the late exhibits as well. The proposed commercial businesses are included but not limited to hair salons, physical therapy offices, diners, etc., which will be making this the mixed-use project. And an updated TIS has been completed and reviewed by engineering. Staff has added site-specific conditions as follows. Landscape buffers along the entire length of Karcher Road and Florida Avenue frontage shall be completed with Phase 1 of the development. The future land uses of the two commercial lots shall be limited to the uses as stated in the development agreement. A revised preliminary plat will need to be resubmitted to the Planning and Zoning Department for review and approval, addressing all the comments and conditions from the city engineering and mapping departments prior to going to public hearing before City Council. The applicant shall comply with the Hillcrest right-of-way conveyance included in Exhibit 2. The applicant shall show a landscape buffer with a berm of 2:1 to 3:1. The applicant shall submit new landscape plans where the lot and number and block numbers match the preliminary plat prior to going to council. Staff finds the proposed request is in compliance with the Caldwell City Code and is in conformance with the comprehensive plan, aligning with 7 goals and 11 policies. Staff recommends that if the request is approved, it be subject to the conditions as specified in findings of facts, conclusions of law, and order of decision. And I stand for questions.
Thank you. I had a couple questions in reviewing that. So, in the initial ITD response, it looked like it was from prior to receiving the newest TIS. So did ITD have a new response or updated response?
Chair, ITD has not submitted a new response, but the condition that was put on the applicant is that they get a new response before City Council.
Questions for staff from commissioners? Commissioner Boutros.
I have a question. With regard to compliance with city code, as I understand it, the lot frontage and the number of parking spaces are still not in compliance, yet they're stated as being in compliance. Is that because you're assuming that the waivers will be granted?
Chair and Commissioner, so the fact they're requesting the waivers, technically, if those were approved, would put them in compliance with the code. Since they are applying for a PUD, they are able to request those waivers. So that's that situation. And they have mentioned that they'll bring up some of their comments on their request for the waivers as well.
When they give testimony?
Yes.
Okay.
The question, Commissioner Harmon.
That was the question I was gonna have, so thank you. There's a lot of waivers here. So, I think the other thing I was wanting to know is where is what was the other facility that was going in? Sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
Oh, the assisted living?
Assisted living. What part of that, it doesn't seem like it really goes with this whole.
Chair and Commissioner, they're proposing the assisted living as something to accommodate the 55 and older community. But they would be able to answer where on their, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other question, Commissioner Boutros?
I'm very sorry. The association of the assisted living would not necessarily be with the 55 and older. It looks like all the townhomes are designated 55 and older. Assisted living is a different kind of facility and would not be in the residential section. It would be in the commercial section.
Chair and Commissioner, that is correct. It would be in the C2 portion of the site.
So it would be in one of, and then I have just the late exhibits, PZ 1000, 1001, and 1002 to enter into the record. But it'd be one of the PZ 1000 spaces?
Chair, I believe it would be in a different section of that northern portion, but that would be something that they would be able to clarify.
Any other questions for staff from commissioners?
I think I'm going to have more questions later, but I want to hear the remainder of the testimony because it may obviate some of my questions.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other questions for staff, I'll ask Brad Beauchamp to come on up. Please go ahead and state your full name and address into the record.
Brad Beauchamp, 4618 South Reed Street, Kennewick, Washington.
Beauchamp, excuse me, I mispronounced it.
Oh, it's happened my whole life. I'm not concerned with it. Appreciate your time. Yeah, we're back. I believe, I don't know if you were here last time, but
I wasn't. I missed that meeting. That's why I'm.
Okay. So, working diligently with your staff since then. I think there were some valid concerns, and I think that application and the process may have been, I don't want to say rushed on our part, because we've worked for a long time going back to when Jerome was still here. So it's not a new process. It's just when staff turns over and different things happen, we're given different direction. And so we've made many modifications to this to get to the first hearing. We've since taken all of the comments that were given to us, worked with staff to alleviate those. We are still working through, there was a comment about some waivers, and I want to be specific on that, is within the PUD process is exactly why staff had recommended we go with that. It does allow for those waivers. Obviously, that's up to council to decide, or the commission to decide which waivers and then how we can address those. But that was specifically why we went there. There are a few things different with this proposed PUD than the existing regular neighborhoods that are out there. I don't know how many PUDs have come through Caldwell. It's a process that with our product, especially in our 55 and older neighborhoods, we utilize almost every time because they're a little bit specific and special compared to just utilizing a standard short plat or long plat. I'll go into a couple things real quick. As far as the parking waiver, what we're specifically asking for on that is in a standard neighborhood, you're gonna, in effect, call it a family neighborhood, you usually have at least 3 drivers. I think they account for like 3.2. A major problem in a family neighborhood with a PUD with this layout. That's why even in your code, most other codes will call for a separate parking lot within that neighborhood to address that. What we found, and I think we can get you a statistic on it, but in a 55 and older, it's below 2 cars in the home. A lot of these, we actually have another one in Tri-Cities that we have. A lot of them are widows where there's 1 car, so there's adequate parking for a guest to come. In this one, I think we sent over an exhibit really late today. What it was, if you look at the plat, you'll see there's quite a few areas that have the alleyway part or the alleyway access. And we're asking for a waiver on those to where with those homes, instead of the 20-foot setback in the front yard, we move those to a 10-foot. And that's for a sense of community. That's fairly standard on a lot of the alleyway access throughout the nation. You move those forward, those people are able to sit on the front porch. That's the reason for the alleyway access. It's not necessarily a more inexpensive way to go. It actually is a more expensive way to go. We got to put in a whole separate road to accommodate that. So the first waiver asking for to move it off 10 foot in the front is to accommodate the alleyway and then to make a sense of community where people sit out there and they're closer to their neighbors on the sidewalk. So that's the first one. With the parking though, if you think about all of those areas in front of those alleyway, we did an exhibit. If you took a 30-foot parking stall, which is really, really long, a standard would be 20 or less. But if you take a 30-footer, we have over 140 stalls throughout the subdivision on the street. Our street, we didn't ask for a variance on the street section. We're doing a standard Caldwell full 53-foot right-of-way. So there's adequate access on both sides of the road for parking per city standard. So it's not something specialized. We're just saying in a 55 and older neighborhood specifically, the amount of cars that's normal for a family neighborhood doesn't exist. And that's why we're asking for the waiver. But then we've also gone in and it doesn't fit code. We understand that having street parking doesn't alleviate that or we wouldn't ask for the waiver. But we wanted the commissioners to know that there is 140 other spaces at 30 foot long just on those islands where the access is from the alleyway. So we feel what we've learned over the years is obviously if you build an apartment building or you build a multifamily or you build a neighborhood without adequate parking, everybody hates you very, very quickly. And so we're not trying to do that. We just from experience, we know that's more than adequate parking. Almost 1 per every house can have 2 parking stalls already. The assisted living portion of this. So what we've done is we've actually partnered with a group, not on this one. They're very interested in coming here, but until we have something more solid, they haven't made a commitment to us, so I don't want to imply that, but we have worked with them in the past. It's more of a campus. And what I mean is they go from 55-year-old living all the way to end-of-life care on their campus. In that campus, they have food service, they have a pool, they have rec room, they have, their one in Montana has a large pub. It's a really big community type center. So it's not the typical, when people hear assisted living, end of life care. It's a full active lifestyle, but they can work all the way through it. So what we've done with them is we offer them the opportunity. They build their facility and then all of the residents within our neighborhood are able to buy credits to utilize the food service. If they want laundry service, there's a whole, if they want to use the pool and the spa, whatever they want to sign up to use at assisted living facility, they get to use. It's not your typical, we actually, when we toured their first facility, we made the comment, it feels like a cruise ship, and they started laughing because they actually have a class they take that they have littler rooms and littler things to make it feel like a cruise ship on land for the older folks that live there. But their pool areas, and we can't afford to put that in. We're trying to keep our costs to where our residents can, and especially at 55 and older, we know the national housing shortage. That's a massive segment. They call it the silver tsunami, that are getting left behind. And so we're trying to come in and say, sell your single family home that you've lived in. A lot of people's wealth is shared right now in their home. That's the only place they've really been able to save. We say sell that for the $400,000 or $500,000, buy one from us for that $250,000 range, and they have a little bit of money for their bank. We give them a wonderful neighborhood. Along with the PUD, we have to put in all those amenities, which are planned on our plat right now. But if we're able to do the assisted living and work with this group, they will come in and add a tremendous more amount of amenities that our people have the option to sign up for. Even if they sign up just for a Sunday, or a weekend meal, they also have the nursing care that they can stay in their own home, set up a nursing call. So it's a great service. We love it. The partnership back and forth. We don't profit off of that assisted living facility, the way they run it. We just kind of work in conjunction. They know if they take care of the people that buy from our neighborhood, they wouldn't want to leave, and they'll have a full facility forever. And so it's a great partnership that we've tried to develop. So hopefully that answers a little bit more of how that works. It's not just a standard assisted living facility. One of the big concerns last time was traffic. I think staff mentioned it really, really well. Maybe Will come up here on one of them, but the access off Florida was a big concern. At the first comment, there was a right in, right out of that. And since then, we've worked with city staff. We've moved that access 70 feet to the south. And according to the city's engineer, that alleviates the right out only. So we're able to use that as a regular intersection, which is massive for us and for traffic flow. Also, like it was mentioned, we've worked with the cemetery. We've gotten a right-of-way access there for Georgia. That's in place, ready to go as soon as we have our approval here. And also since then, IDT did come back. We were told no for about 2 years that we would never get an access off Karcher. But thank goodness we have a bulldog on our team, and Dennis kept working with them, and they did grant that. There's adequate space there for turn lanes, for slow down, for acceleration lanes, so it fits there. We just sent over, I guess they didn't get it earlier today, but we did send over approval letter. IDT still on that has some reworking of how much land we'll have to dedicate for that. So all it is right now is it says, yes, it's approved, but the final design isn't totally approved. But they are moving forward with their design, and they'll get that they say they'll get that to the city as soon as they have it. A couple other things with the PUD. A lot of people will look at the size of the lots, and that concerns people. Remember, these are all attached homes. And so what we're trying to do is go from a lifestyle of maintaining yards and grass and all the things they've had to do. And a lot of our homes, we put a turf in, so we don't put actual grass unless they request it, because they find out they don't want to mow anymore. So this is to move them from a lifestyle of taking care of things into a lifestyle to where the neighborhood is a lot less maintenance. And so the smaller lots is actually a blessing. That's what we're shooting for. With the PUD here, we're not adding to the overwhelming thing on the school. That's why we actually went to the 55 and older. Originally, I think when we bought this, we were thinking we would go with a standard family neighborhood, but we made the switch. We have other 55 and older neighborhoods that we really like. Is that my time?
Yeah. You'd stand for questions from commissioners?
Absolutely.
All right. Commissioners. Commissioner Boutros, go ahead.
I do have a question. So I want to get into this business of parking adequacy.
Okay.
It looks like the denser arrangement of housing units without available parking to code is associated with the designation of the 215 townhomes as a 55-plus community. This appears to erroneously associate 55-plus age as being unpartnered or aged and not driving, or other circumstances that allow there to be less parking. But the units are shown as two-bedroom, and 55-plus is not a disabled category, and many people continue active lifestyles well beyond this age, meaning that more parking is needed. The current code for parking is quite a minimal amount of parking spaces. And I have not yet heard sufficient justification to give relief on that. A point of clarification to staff: when this was remanded, it was with the instruction that this should be brought to code. We were not specific on all of the different elements on which we thought would be acceptable or not acceptable. The parking is a problem. When you consider that you're also asking for a waiver on lot frontage to quite a narrow lot, there's not going to be on-street parking directly in front of these residences. As you pointed out, it's only where there are islands or other areas like that, and at that, it's parallel parking. That's not necessarily a good thing. That doesn't fit particularly with the character of Caldwell. So this is something that we need to dig into.
Okay. If I can address that a little bit. So I wasn't trying to imply that 55 and older is not an active lifestyle. What I'm saying is there are no children living at home. That's part of our, when we put our CC&Rs in place, there are no children under the age of 55 living there without special permission. So when I say that, it eliminates an extra car. So the vast majority of these will only have 2 cars. Family neighborhoods, it's 3 to 3.5 cars is what the average is. So I don't mean to imply that they won't have automobiles. They definitely do, and they definitely drive. But our parking, our lot frontage is adequate for 2 parking stalls in front of each home on their property.
So when you say each home, are you talking about each structure or each residential unit?
Each residential unit. They're all individual, even though they're attached. It's like a townhome. Each residential door has 2 parking off-street already.
In addition to the 2, it comes with 2. It's such, so each resident has 2 lots, and then you're saying that there would be another 2 on the street?
No, what I'm saying is each residential unit has 2 parking spaces off the street, just like any other home
Gotcha.
in their driveway.
Yeah.
They each have a driveway.
Okay, but it's a single-car garage.
It is, but you have 20 foot of frontage, and you can put 2 cars side by side and 20 foot. Your normal stalls out here are probably either 9 foot or 10 foot, probably 9.
20-foot standard.
So it's standard to get, we are getting 2 cars off the road on every home. What I'm saying is, in addition to that, if you can pull that up a little bit, I don't know if that plat will, that's an exhibit. But on the plat, if you look at the islands, what I was saying is the additional parking around those at 30 foot, we understand it's parallel parking, that's why we went to 30 foot. A normal standard parking stall like that would be 20. We have, so on the islands there with the alleyway, so your top right island and your bottom island that have the alleyway homes, if you can you see those? So that, and we just sent this exhibit in, but that allows for 140 on-street parking spots for visitors. So that's
Add extra parking by those islands.
around, yes, not the corners, but everywhere else on all the straights, it adds up to 140 slots. Now, the code would say that we need a parking lot for the additional in the PUD. We understand that. That's why we're asking for the waiver, but we're saying along with the waiver, there is area for 140 30-foot parking stalls on street, which is legal parking.
Yes.
For guests. I mean, 140 is well in excess of what would be required. I think it's 1 stall per every 4 dwelling units, I think is your code. So I think that would be, 60 stalls. And we're saying there's an additional 140 stalls within the subdivision. It's not in a parking lot, but they are there. Is that any clearer?
Staff,
Just to me.
can you verify that those parking spaces are there? Have you analyzed that?
Chair and Commissioner, I was sent a document that did show some lines where on-street parking was proposed. I didn't have time to exactly review it to see if the number was correct, but I was sent a document.
Thank you.
And you were correct on that. Is great assumption is on all of the lots that are 20 foot of frontage, there is no street parking in front of those. They're too, I mean, that'd be in your driveway. And so that's why it only exists on the islands that are alleyway parking.
Okay, with regard to the alleys, are you proposing that people would be able to park in the alleys, or do those have to be kept clear for, utility services and, trash collection like that?
Yeah, they're kept clear, so people would come in there and then they have a back entrance for their garage or for their driveway. So they would park off of that alleyway. That has to be, I think, it's a dedicated fire line or lane.
Other questions from commissioners? I'll go. So I'm just looking at, I guess I'm still a bit confused. I'm looking at this late exhibit, PZ 1000, which has the commercial lot, and looking at the various spots and trying to reconcile where the assisted living would fit within this.
Yes.
So can you help offer some clarity there?
Yes, you have two different exhibits. And last time when we were here, I remember there was a couple comments about, hey, we really like to see conceptuals of what you're thinking. And so the old one had, the original one had the assisted living facility on there. There's a conceptual with their 3D rendering. This was a new layout saying if we knew that was a conditional use within the C2, working with staff. And so we thought, well, let's show what else we've built if we weren't to get that conditional use for the assisted living. This is another concept, understanding that when that commercial area is developed, we have to come back with another site plan specifically for that. We were just trying to give multiple ideas of what that commercial area could look like if we weren't given a C2, it weren't given the conditional use. So they're two different exhibits that we have there for you.
So, so there's this one that would just be commercial spaces, 6 spots. Is one of the configurations include these commercial spots plus an assisted living, or would it be this or an assisted living?
No, potentially. There's a lot of area there for commercial, and so potentially we would like to have a combination of that. It's nice to have the services that both the assisted living, they actually put a lot of retail type services in their lower level that would be utilized specifically by our neighborhood. The diner and the pub and different things like that would be definitely utilized. But there's enough room there to potentially have another couple little buildings depending on what the configuration is. Like I said, we're not under contract with the organization we've worked with before at this point. And so to tell you, hey, on this 7 acres, they only need 4.5 for their facility. They've done them as small as 2.5, and they've done them as large as 10. And so within that, there's a variety of how that could be developed. And our understanding would be that at the time we bring back a site plan, that has to be in compliance with city code.
So just for clarification, so they will come back with a different site plan for that commercial space, that we're not necessarily approving the commercial space now?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why we gave multiples. We said, let's show you what we're really trying to accomplish. We think the assisted living is a great fit for what we do. It turns out really, really good, but for us, we would still like to have some other retail space, commercial space in there.
Okay, thank you. And then that helps to clarify, because I guess I was thinking we're approving this, but then assisted living on top of the rest of that. So thanks for the clarification.
That makes sense.
Commissioner Boutros, you have a follow-up?
So, I had a question about the qualification for a PUD, planned unit development, and it might be better for staff to answer this question, but let me ask it and then we'll see. The form that was in there on page 49 of the 146 pages is obsolete. It shows a mix of townhomes and single-family homes, but is now all townhomes. The changes to create a townhome and assisted living development Does that disqualify this application as a PUD, or is it still okay?
I'm assuming that's a question for staff, so.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Maybe, while you think about it, maybe we can circle back while you look that up, because I don't know, I think Commissioner Larson had some questions too, but we will circle back to that, let them find what you're referencing, and they can come back to that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I
You're good.
had one more observation. This has nothing to do with the approval or not of an application, but you show a street name of Styx River, and that may not be the best name for a street in a 55-plus community, because the river Styx in Greek mythology is the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead.
I don't recall if we picked any of those. I think I believe they were picked out by somebody else, so I'm gonna plead the fifth on that one.
Somebody picked it. That's not the best name for a street where there were retirement folks.
I would say we would definitely take a recommendation to change that street name. If you can make that a condition, we would accept that along with others. I think a lot of them are tough names. They're not the best names, but I don't think we chose them.
Commissioner Larson.
Yeah, a bunch of the other questions were asked, but mine was, did you guys plan on having a stop sign on Georgia there, or are you planning on just letting it go straight through out to the other neighborhood?
That would be a question for Public Works when we turn in our civils. I would assume, thinking of how that lays out, it would be just continuous, but it would be up to Public Works to tell us how that would work. I couldn't tell you. Okay. I would say this, whatever way that they need it done, we'll comply with it.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Collins, Dr. Collins.
Chair and Commissioner Boutros, just to circle back on your question, we were trying to find the right pages to reference. So on page 9 of the report, you'll see under section 8 where it talks about plan unit development approval criteria, and that's number 2, and it does talk about those 5 different situations, but the way the code reads is they only have to meet 2 or more of those. So if you then reference page 18 of the staff report, you'll see that the planner has denoted the 2 that they do meet that qualifies them to have a plan unit development.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right, additional questions for the applicant? Commissioner Larson.
I did have one other one. Did you guys reach out to Valley View if they needed any help? I know it's all older people, not decrepit, but older. You gotta be
careful, 55 and older decrepit. Some of us are getting close to that, so.
So, I know that they just passed a bond recently, but I was just wondering, did you guys plan on doing any assistance to Valley View, or just?
In Valley View, tell me who that is.
The school district?
We have had a lot of communication with Valley View, and that was one of the early decisions, is when we had talked to them about I want to call it, a moratorium on building because of the schools were so overwhelmed. That was one of our earlier changes from a family neighborhood where they weren't going to be able to support that. It would have overwhelmed them with the amount of people that moved in there. So we did have conversations with them. And sorry, there's some of these things, my partner was going to be here. He pulled his bicep yesterday, so he's getting ready for surgery. So he has a few of those answers.
And I think it's just going back to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of a moot point with the 55 and up, to a certain extent, right? There's going to be fewer children, school-age children in the homes. There certainly may be exceptions at a certain extent, but it would be less impactful.
I'm going to ask for you guys to clarify it too, so I'm not speaking, but it's not Idaho code for them to have to go to the schools and offer anything, correct? I'm just saying, everybody keeps thinking this, but it's not Idaho code.
Chair and Commissioner, that is correct. There is nothing in the statutes or the codes that requires them to make any donations or contributions to the school district. Schools through Idaho statute get their funding through school bonds.
Thank you.
All right, any additional questions? Hearing none, thank you. So we'll move on to William Mason. So please state your name and address into the record, and you will have no more than 5 minutes.
William Mason with Mason and Associates. Our address is 924 3rd Street South in Nampa. So the only thing I need to discuss is the accesses. When we originally met, there was a request from engineering for us to actually push our access onto Florida further to the north. I was able to meet with the planning and zoning director and the city engineer, and the city code allows for a full access if we are 315 feet from the south edge of Highway 55 to the north edge of our approach. And because of the widening of Highway 55, it was deemed that it would be probably beneficial for us to actually move our approach to the south instead of lining up with the Generations lane that is to the east, which would have forced us to actually move our approach further toward the intersection. So if, Katie, if you can go to the preliminary plat just for a minute. So you can see right at the very top right-hand corner, that actually is the new approach, and you can talk to staff about that, but we do meet that minimum 315 feet. One of the concerns if we moved to the north also was the fact that you would have a commercial drive going, or a residential drive going through commercial property. This actually puts the commercial residential access at the dividing line. Again, I think Brad already talked about ITD. We've worked that out with ITD at least to the point where we've got them on board. So I think the commercial now has good access, and I guess that's all I have to say unless you have questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Mason? Nope, thank you. And then I have here, if necessary, they would speak Sean and Kim Burton. I don't know if you deem it necessary. Come on up, go ahead and say your name and address into the record.
Yeah, it's Sean Burton at 13734 Coulter Road. So on that plot map, we're the house that's at the very corner of the development here that would have Georgia Avenue that would tie in. When we first got the property, there was no Georgia Avenue. Sienna Hills subsequently put Georgia Avenue that ran completely parallel with our property, and we've kind of had to deal with just all the headlights, lights, and everything that comes onto the property. And our concern was the amount of traffic that would start using that access to come out into Sienna Hills to try to get up to Indiana. And, Dennis was, had mentioned in the previous meeting, and kind of like you were talking about that whole stop sign on the amount of traffic that our hope and we want to make sure we express that you would approve a gate there, right? Police and fire can get in, the people in the community can get in and out, but it would stop all of the traffic that will use Georgia Avenue down into that community and back out at any time they wanted. And it just makes for, pretty much we're almost covered by roads on three sides of our property now. Did you have any questions and kind of what
If you're done with your testimony,
Yeah, go ahead.
I do have a question.
Commissioner Boutros.
Is this the section of the development where they got the access to the cemetery? Could we bring that up on the map and see what it actually looks like in some detail?
Yeah.
Is that available?
Any other questions while they're looking that up?
Would a stop sign suffice, or you do need it to be a gate?
I would prefer a gate. I mean, police, fire can go in and out, the people in there can go in and out, and it would I think stop a lot of people, because ITD doesn't want people making lefts across the freeway, right, off of Florida. Mm-hmm. So everybody in there is going to be like, how am I going to get westbound on Highway 55? I got to go up to Indiana. So there's going to be quite a bit of traffic that will want to keep trying to use that, instead of them having to go, out to the freeway, take a right, go down to Lake to be able to get turned around, And now I'm glad that ITD gave them the approval to the commercial, mm-hmm. right, that they have that relief in and out, and that this would tie in there. But it's just gonna make a lot of cars going with their headlights and the traffic off the backside of our property, because where you see that deciduous tree on that corner, you know, we now have Coulter, Georgia Avenue, and then this road on the backside of the, you know.
So with the access that's granted by the cemetery, is this intended as a full-use road, or is it intended as a fire access only? And if so, could there be the knockdown bollards installed to keep automobile traffic out of it?
Chair and Commissioners, I'm going to defer to Rob on this. I believe that access on to Georgia is a secondary access, a full access. The one on the very south
And
corner.
is that impacted by
Is that
ITD's approval?
is that an emergency, just emergency only, or isn't it a secondary access?
That was designed to tie in as a secondary
That's what I thought
The
too,
intent is to have it as a full access. So, what kind of options are available to provide the requested degree of privacy to that property if traffic is coming and going all the time on this secondary access? Is there a feasible solution?
And I'm fine if we have to take that out of this meeting, not to tie things up, and I can talk with the developer.
It needs to be
Okay.
done here, and if there is an agreement on some kind of solution, it needs to be a conditional approval.
Yeah.
So we do need to address it.
Thank you, Commissioner Boutros. So your question, I just want to make sure I understand clearly. Your question is, to what degree is there going to be any privacy to either of these developments by having that cross connectivity established through that southwest corner? Is that correct?
Or what privacy is there to this given property?
Okay. Typically, when several developments come in, the cross access is something that just helps vehicles traverse back and forth without having to get out on the highway, for example, or onto the major roadways. And so you're going to have some development coming through other developments, and oftentimes that goes both ways. You'll have people from the south maybe going up to the north to go to the retail or whatever they have up there. And you may have people coming down through to the south to get to their houses. And so it's a trade-off. You do get people passing through, and I wouldn't say that you don't necessarily have a degree of privacy. I mean, we're talking about public roadways here, where anybody's allowed to use a public roadway. But there are circumstances where we have restricted cross-access simply because we felt like there were, under those conditions, we felt like it wasn't in the best interest of that area. In many cases, and with previous city council members, we were always pushed to make sure we had cross-access all the way around so that everything at some future point can be intertwined, and that just helps with the traffic circulation. So it's more of a philosophical discussion if we want to have cross-access through developments so people don't have to go all the way out and around. But by doing that, you are going to have other people passing through subdivisions that normally wouldn't. So I guess I didn't really answer your question, but it's...
No, actually you did. So given the reality of the situation, is there another mitigation? For example, is there enough space for plantings or a berm or something that would give this homeowner some privacy as that traffic now is going through an area that close to the corner of their property? I don't know if there's enough room for that. I don't know if the applicant would be willing to work with this homeowner to try and do something with plantings or a berm to improve that privacy. But that's the kind of thing that if the applicant was willing to do that and the homeowner is willing to work with the applicant, that I think would be a reasonable solution.
Yeah. Yeah, and that would be up to, that's up to the commission if you want to put some additional requirement or some sort of item like that. That's certainly appropriate.
Commissioner Larson?
Yeah, I have another question, just to clarify. I don't know if you know this, but do you know what percentage go east and west for 55-year-olds? I mean, it's very, very specific, but do you know which percentage, if they're mostly going east or mostly going west?
Are you referring to traffic?
On 55.
On 55? I can look that up, and it should be in the traffic impact study, but it may take me a minute to track that down.
No rush.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
No? Thank you.
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Kim, do you have anything you wanted to add? And you'll get a chance to rebut in a minute. I'm sorry, Kim, did you say you were okay? Okay. And then also in neutral that chose not to speak, I have Douglas Alexander and Deborah Alexander. And those were those that signed up. So with that, now we have time for Brad to come back up for rebuttal not to exceed 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. I believe on that, that's an open space, abutting that lot. If we pull that, you see the end house there. I can't read it from here, but I believe that's a green space, a park area.
It's common.
Yeah, it's a common area there. I don't know your code well enough, to know what could be required of a developer. I agree with Public Works Director that it's a right-of-way. The connectivity is very, very important. I would not want that as a fire only. I would not want that at all. Most neighborhoods, as we build out, in this case, we've built off the freeway, now we're going to it, needs to have that connectivity. In this case, I completely understand their concern. It's a very valid concern. I would say we could work with them on some fencing, maybe going in. They probably have we would go in and do a block fence. We're not planning to do that everywhere, but outside this, you could condition for a certain percentage of it. We would probably say coming down there on Georgia for a certain percentage that ties back into their house, we would be open to doing a block fence for them. Probably a percentage of it across the back there too. I don't anticipate having wild parties on that common space, but just to kind of keep the noise down and to make it, we agree with them. We understand that can be, they've lived there for a long time, and if we can do that, we would say we'll put in a block fence to try to alleviate some light and some noise for them. So that could be conditioned, and we would be fine with that.
Chair, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Please.
I'm going to cut into your 5 minutes, but I
That's
promise
fine.
you'll get it back.
I'll reclaim my time.
I just wanted to point out that along that south property line, from where Georgia's connecting, that park area, all the way around the back, they're already showing a 6-foot-high privacy fence. So it's already called out on their plans.
Yeah, I think the issue is after they're coming around that corner. So it's probably not something that's required along the north side, but to transition around the curve.
Yeah, and like I said, I think we're open to that. We're not going to come to a hearing and volunteer that for every neighbor because our property's our property. I always say this is we get some complaints, and I don't think this is out of line at all. I'm not trying to say it, but a lot of times we'll buy a property that hasn't been developed for 20 years, and they say, well, I've been using that as access, and we understand that, but it's our property, and we're not required to put a block fence. In this case, I would say we would be willing to do that on the west side of their property.
I appreciate that, the cooperation with the homeowner. I don't think I want to tie their hands with a specific solution. Is it adequate to just specify a condition of approval that the applicant and that homeowner will work together on some kind of mitigation in that spot?
Chair and Commissioner Boutros, that's fine. But I just want to note, though, that the house that's in question is the one on the southeast side, which is across the street from where the privacy fence is already showing being installed. It's not the one on the other side of the road.
I might be so can you tell me on this which one am I looking at the wrong one then?
Can you point to it?
Okay, I was looking at the wrong one, too.
Yeah, I was assuming it's where the cursor is.
So that.
Oh, that is it.
Right there, that's, okay.
Here on that side, yep.
Okay, that's the one
Oh, okay.
that I was thinking it was.
Okay. On the north side, I think he's looking for something further down on the west side.
Our concern is
Well, we'll have to, sir, we'll have to, just to maintain record. All right, but it sounds like there's an opportunity for collaboration between the developer and the specific homeowner to mitigate,
Did we get the homeowner's name again?
yeah, it's here in the record. All right, any additional things you'd like to address? And, okay, any final questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and close,
Chairman,
yes, sorry.
I just wanted to respond back to the question that was asked
Oh, yeah,
earlier.
thank you.
So according to the traffic impact study, on the majority of the traffic goes out and will try to get to Karcher Road. 64% of all the traffic from this development is expected to go east, go and come from the east. 13% is expected to go and come from the west on Karcher. 9% is expected to go north on Florida, and then 14% south on Florida. So the majority of the traffic is trying to get out to Karcher and trying to go east. In my opinion, I understand the existing homeowners' concerns about traffic. Looking at the way this site is laid out, there's probably not going to be a lot of traffic from this development going down south in that direction. It doesn't appear that there's anything down there that's going to draw traffic down in that direction. But there may be traffic down in that area that would be coming north to get up onto Karcher through the possible right-in, right-out. So, but those are just some thoughts.
Thank you. All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to close public testimony.
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Larson. Is there a second?
I second.
Second from Commissioner Harmon. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, so public testimony is now closed, so this is the time for us to collaborate and deliberate and make a decision. Commissioners.
So my single biggest concern pertained to parking, and it looks like that's been addressed. Are the other commissioners satisfied that there's going to be adequate parking? What I'd really hate to see is a situation where there's horrible congestion in the development because the streets are full of parked cars.
So I agree that that's a concern. So maybe I would consider maybe just making that a condition to have that addressed. It sounds like the planner had information that she hasn't had a chance to review. So maybe if we can condition it where it's just called out before it goes before council, there's a specific report that you received in regards to parking. So just to make sure that the council has the opportunity to really analyze that.
Thank you.
I'm in agreement.
Okay.
Yep.
My other concern, and again, I think it's just a matter of timing, was, and I didn't see it in the conditions, and I could have missed it, so I would ask staff to correct me if I did miss it, is to ensuring that before council sees this, having the final ITD report on the traffic impact study, since we didn't get an opportunity to see that.
Chair, that is actually one of the conditions
Okay.
that continue to stay in the report.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, comments? And then I think the other condition was potentially asking the developer to collaborate with the homeowner.
I do have a question for staff. For this kind of development where you have separately owned lots that share structure, like an old, I don't know why they don't call them condominiums anymore, but it sounds like a condominium. And is all of that well established on how disputes with regard to the structural integrity, things like replacing roofs, all of that well established?
And the was it CCNR? I forget the acronym. No.
Chair and commissioners, these are townhomes, so they're built on their own individual lots, and they share a property line through a common firewall. And it's built through the International Building Code, and so it meets all the code requirements and everything, and they're each responsible for their portion of that firewall. It's a little different than condominiums. Condominiums are where you own the building and the airspace, but not the property. The townhomes, you own the property and the structure itself. You're just sharing a common wall. It kind of sits on the property line and overlaps slightly.
And this is hopefully a common thing, and that there's no controversy or that's going to erupt in the future over this kind of structural arrangement?
Yep, it's very legal. The way that the wall is built, they each kind of almost have their own exterior wall.
Thank you.
All right, so we good at making a decision. We're adding, so additionally, the noted stipulations that are on here with an additional one addressing parking, or just ensuring that council has a full report on parking. That council also has the full report. I guess that's already, the ITD is already in one of the the conditions, and then a condition to collaborate with developer and to collaborate with the homeowner on some sort of berm or some sort of
measure.
privacy mitigation.
Right.
All right. If we're good with that, I would entertain a motion at this time.
Realize whoever does it has to
You
read
have to
it.
remember that.
I
So
wasn't gonna throw Rand under the bus, but he did write notes for the conditions.
I certainly can add to them. I have my notes here.
Where's the cheat sheet? All right, so so moved.
What are you moving?
Chair, and
Yes.
when you guys are reading the application number, you do not have to read all the zeros.
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay. So I think, this.
Should have told me before.
This
It was
first one.
entertaining. It was entertaining.
Based on the testimony and evidence and record in this matter, and upon the findings of fact and conclusions of law set forth herein, do hereby determine and move as follows. The request for CPM 22-5 for a comprehensive plan map amendment on the subject parcel from HC Highway Corridor to CS Commercial and Service along Highway 55 on the northern portion, and an MDR medium-density residential on the southern portion of the subject parcel, to include approval of resolution number 35-23, is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions of approval as presented and amended, and as specified, that the applicant will work with homeowner Burton, correct name, on privacy features at the corner of his property, and that the results of the full traffic study and parking situation in the development be reported to the city council, with the expectation that the 140 parking spaces as specified would be available. And so I continue reading, and the request for ZON 22-8 for a rezone of parcel R32842 from R1 low-density residential to a split zone of C2 community commercial on the northern portion and R2 medium-density residential on the southern portion of the parcel is recommended for approval, and the request for AMD 22-04 for the approval of a development agreement modification to remove the subject parcel from the original development agreement and to create a new development agreement specific to the new proposed development plan is recommended for approval, and the request for PUD 22-7 and SUB 22-27 for the approval of a planned unit development preliminary plat consisting of 215 residential lots for West Haven subdivision is recommended for approval, and the request for SUP 22-19 for the approval of a special use permit for an assisted living facility is recommended for approval.
Second.
All right, so that motion was Commissioner Boutros. Commissioner Larson made the second. Roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold the roll call.
I'm sorry, Chair and Commissioner, can you confirm, did you say that the SUP was not recommended for approval?
No, was recommended.
Okay, was. Oh, that's right, I'm sorry.
Recommended for approval.
The SUP is approval, not a recommendation.
Oh,
Yeah, all of them say recommended on our sheet.
Okay, that's okay, that's
Oh, okay.
okay.
So
So
to
the
clarify-
SUP would be for a final approval.
Do you
Do
want
I
to
need
clarify that for the record? That's what you meant?
And for clarification, the request for SUP 22-19 for the approval of a special use permit for an assisted living facility is approved.
Thank you.
Second again.
All right, so that adjustment was made by Commissioner Boutros and seconded again by Commissioner Larson. Roll call, please.
Zamora,
Yes.
Harmon,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Boutros.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so we're done with that, so we'll close that public hearing and move on to new business here on our agenda. And I will open the public hearing related to case number AN224, applicant Robert Patrick Nunemacher. And if I mispronounce that, I apologize. 208 Tires requesting annexation of parcel 834313010000, approximately 2.71 acres, to include annexation of the adjacent right-of-way with a proposed zoning designation of HC Highway Corridor, where the 2040 Comprehensive Plan land use designation is HC Highway Corridor. The applicant is proposing the development of a commercial building for the retail sale of wheels, tires, and suspensions. The site is located on the southwest corner of Highway 2026 and Middleton Road in Caldwell, Idaho. Staff report, please.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. Alex Jones, Associate Planner, 621 Cleveland Boulevard. And again, this is the application for 208 Tires annexation. For the application request, we're looking at annexation and zoning to Highway Corridor. The project location is a 2.71 acre parcel located on the southwest corner of Highway 2026 and Middleton Road. The applicant is proposing the parcel be annexed in the city with a HC Highway Corridor zone. Here are some pictures of the subject parcel. For development proposal, if this is approved annexation, the applicant would like to do a tire store, which is a permitted use in the highway corridor. For the landscaping plan, they are proposing a 30-foot landscape buffer along Highway 2026 and a 25-foot buffer along Middleton Road. This meets code. Here are elevations for the tire store. For existing conditions, there is county to the north, south, and the west is C2 and R1, and to the east is highway corridor. For the 2040 comprehensive plan, this is designated as highway corridor. We received no agency notifications and no public notifications. And staff finds that this is conformance with the comprehensive plan, aligns with 4 goals and 7 policies, and that if the P&Z Commission recommends approval, that this is subject to the conditions in the FCO. And I stand for questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Planner Jones?
I have an observation. After we received this package for review, I happened to be driving south on Middleton Road and passed this property and saw a for sale sign on it. And I thought, is this conditioned for use only as a tire retail store, or should we, the commission, be evaluating the application as a more general retail establishment? A minor point, but I wanted to ask it.
Commissioners, this proposal is just for the annexation. We tend, as the department, to ask what the plan is for this store. This would still follow under retail, so the applicant won't be stuck to just this use if they were to annex in. I know I have talked to the applicant about that for sale sign, and I believe the applicant can speak on it more once they do the testimony.
So in that same vein, there's a there's a plan view that shows potentially 3 different structures on this property, and knowing that access is not going to be allowed from Highway 2026, the driveway would come across the south side of this property. So is that of any concern, or is the assumption always going to have to be that the entire property is under single ownership so that there are no conflicts on use of that driveway?
Commissioners, with that, we can assume this will be under one ownership. If they were to split this parcel and build another development on the, let's say, west portion of it, with a code, as long as they have a cross-access easement, that would be allowed, where the parcel to the west would just take access through.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Any additional questions from staff or for staff? All right, Mr. Nunemacher, if you would you like to come up? Yeah, go ahead and come up, state your name and address into the record. And if you want to add anything additional and stand for questions from commissioners.
Robert Patrick Nunemacher, and what else did I need to state?
Your address into the record.
8142 East Waterstone Court, 7236 Cherry Lane, Nampa, Idaho.
Thank you. Anything you would like to add?
No.
Okay. Fair enough. Commissioners, any questions? If you would be okay, then just stand for. Oh, okay.
I did have a question for staff for fire. Hopefully this doesn't happen, but if this whole place catches on fire, is it Nampa or Caldwell Fire who would have to go here?
Commissioner, that would be Caldwell.
Caldwell. And do we know what their response time would be for rubber being on fire? Hopefully it doesn't happen. Hoping.
And when it does, it's a, I was told that it would be,
Give me one sec. I know that's in the staff report for the distance.
I guess my general question is, I was trying to find it, but is there a general rule on how close they have to be to one of our fire stations? No? So they can be right on the edge and be totally fine as long as they're inside of Caldwell?
It looks like
if
for
you
this
have-
development, they are 1.45 miles away from Fire Zone 3. With this use, they are required to have special sprinkler systems to make sure they are covered for this kind of thing, so.
Okay.
We've had a few conversations with fire. They did a roundtable for this, so the applicant does know what they need to do to keep the building safe.
Okay, thank you.
that's it.
Any other questions? All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, well, since that was, Robert was the only person that, Mr. Nunemacher was the only person that signed up. Any additional information from staff? If not, entertain a motion to close public testimony.
So moved.
It's a motion for Commissioner Boutros.
Second.
Second from, I think I heard Commissioner Harmon first. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Commissioners, thoughts on this? For me, it seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, if there's no further discussion, then I would entertain an action.
They don't want to read it.
No, I forgot. What
And find it.
You just said you start with based.
All right, so based on the testimony and evidence and record in this matter, and upon findings of facts and conclusion of law set forth herein, do hereby determine and move as follows. The request for ANN 22-4 to annex parcel R343130100 with the zoning designation of HC Highway Corridor is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions of approval as presented.
Thank you. That was a motion for Commissioner Harmon. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from, I think, Commissioner Boutros. Roll call, please.
Zamora,
Yes.
Harmon,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Boutros.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries. And with that, I'll close this public hearing and we'll move on down the agenda. All right. So next action item, so I'll open public hearing for this quasi-judicial case. It's case number AN 232, AN 233, AN 234, and it's actually ANN for all of them, ANN 234, ANN 2228, and SUB 2245 requests by TO Engineers on behalf of the Roosevelt Star LLC to annex parcel 831581, approximately 2.28 acres, parcel R3266801200, approximately 1.81 acres, and parcel R21582, approximately 3.19 acres, and parcel R3266801300, approximately 145.55 acres, with a proposed designation of R1 low-density residential, where the comprehensive plan land use designation of the property is low-density residential to include approval of a development agreement associated with the annexation and zoning of a parcel R326680130 under application ANN 228. Concurrently, the applicant is requesting approval for a preliminary plat for a single-family development on parcel 63266801300 for Chickasaw subdivision consisting of 400 single-family homes, building lots, 38 common lots, 36 drainage lots, and 1 emergency service lot. The project is proposed to be developed in 14 phases. Parcel R32668011300 has an existing municipal service agreement. INST and number 2020-043549. Parcels R21582 and parcels 12581 are located on the north of Homedale Road and east of Farmway Road. And parcels R32668011200 and R3266801300 are located south of Homedale Road and west of Farmway in Caldwell, Idaho. And with that, staff report, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. Katie Wright, Associate Planner, 621 Cleveland Boulevard. Before you is Chickasaw ANN 2228, SUB 2245, ANN 232, ANN 233, and ANN 234. You also have been presented with 4 late exhibits. One is an updated engineering memo from July 25th, 2023. Another one is an updated findings of facts, conclusions of law, and order of decision document with changes to some of the conditions. An addendum to the original municipal services agreement, and the other is an updated open space document. The project is 152.82 acres located on the northeast corner of Homedale and Farmway, as well as the southwest corner of Homedale and Farmway. The applicant is proposing outparcels R3266801200, R215181, and R582, and parcel R3266801300 to be annexed into the city with low-density residential zone, along with the approval of preliminary plat for parcel R3266801300, approximately 145.55 acres of that being annexed. Here is the subject site. The one on the left is the site that is being proposed to be developed into the subdivision before you. The 3 on the right are the other parcels that are being annexed in as well. 400 single-family homes are being proposed, along with a pool, pickleball, and tennis courts. A traffic impact study was performed and reviewed by the City of Caldwell Engineering Department. The municipal services agreement requires 10% open space, and they're providing 10%, equaling about 14.54 acres of qualifying open space. The applicant is in compliance with all landscaping, land use separation, pathway, and parking requirements. The proposed development is surrounded by county in all directions, with some R1 to the northeast. On the screen are the approved developments in the surrounding area. The proposed comp plan designation and development is low-density residential, which will keep the same, and the proposed densities are in compliance with the comprehensive plan, being 2.75 dwelling units per acre, which also complies with the municipal services agreement. Utilities are provided to serve the proposed site and are adequate to accommodate the proposed development. Public agencies were notified and asked to provide comments. The only ones with specific comments were Boise Project Board of Control wants to ensure the easements are provided along Burris Lateral and Bowles Lateral. And Compass mentioned that the growth exceeds what is projected for this area, and the transportation infrastructure may not be able to support the new demands. They suggested adding bike and ped pathways between lots internally. And there was a written public comment from Larry and Deborah Miles. This letter is stating safety concerns with Moss Street due to their access being within 75 feet of the proposed road. The updated FCOs have been provided as the late exhibit. The changes are reflected here. The added conditions for the parcel with the proposed development, not including general conditions, are as follows. The applicant shall submit a recorded easement for the emergency access road being provided over parcel R32668013B0 and provisions for maintenance prior to submittal of a final plat application. No landscaping shall be located within the easement of the Burris Lateral, and the existing access shall remain a flat drivable surface. Off-street parking spaces requirements for each residential lot shall be provided at time of build-out and shall adhere to city code. The major pathways must be within a public access easement identified on the plat. There shall be one trash receptacle and park bench provided for every 600 linear feet of pathway area and one streetlight for every 150 linear feet of pathway area. Said trash receptacles and park benches shall be selected from those allowed under subsection 10-12-05-8A2 of this chapter. This is quoted from the code. Said streetlights shall meet all of the requirements listed under subsection 10-12-05-14B of this chapter as well. The development must comply with the Municipal Services Agreement MS 2001 recorded under instrument number 2020-043549. All landscaping buffers along Homedale Road must be completed with the development of Phase 1, and all landscaping buffers along Farmway Road must be completed with development of Phase 8. All landscape islands within the right-of-way must be numbered as common lots. Homeowners Association CCNRs, the applicant will be required to submit the CCNRs to the city staff for review approval prior to recordation. The CCNRs shall include provisions for an architectural review committee. Building design, the building design guidelines are outlined in the Municipal Services Agreement recorded under instrument number 2020-043549, Exhibit 1, Attachment A of the staff report. Prior to issuance of the building permit for individual lots, the applicant shall be required to provide a letter of approval from the Chickasaw HOA Architectural Review Committee verifying compliance with the building design guidelines outlined in the Municipal Services Agreement, the CCNRs, and the city code. Conditions for the 3 out parcels being annexed are included in the FCOs, but are only general conditions for future development. Municipal Services Agreement. There is a Municipal Services Agreement that has been recorded under instrument number 22-043549 in 2020 that states it will serve in place of a development agreement when this property is annexed. It lays out specific design guidelines, engineering requirements, and more. The addendum that was provided as a late exhibit is to add development-specific conditions that are more up to date with the current requirements from the city, as well as the development proposal they have provided. Staff recommends that the HOA have an architectural review committee to review compliance with the design standards prior to issuance of a building permit. Staff finds the proposed request is in compliance with the Caldwell City Code and is in conformance with the comprehensive plan, aligning with 9 goals and 9 policies. Staff recommends that if the request is approved, it be subject to the conditions as specified in the findings of facts, conclusions of law, and order of decision. And I stand for questions.
Thank you. Questions for commissioners, from commissioners for staff? Commissioner Boutros.
What are the plans for the 3 smaller parcels for which annexation is requested? They appear to be part of this application to provide connectivity to Caldwell city limits to justify the annexation of the largest parcel.
Chair and Commissioner, that is correct. That is their sole purpose of being annexed. There is no plan for future development at this time.
Oh, okay, so what is the current use of those smaller parcels?
Those, I believe currently are all just single-family homes.
So they're going to remain that way?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. It looks like there are other non-development properties involved in the land required to construct the roundabout at Farmway and Homedale that was described in the package. Have those agreements been reached, and what are the consequences if agreement is not reached?
Chair and Commissioner, it is requested that the city try and get right-of-way from those parcels for that roundabout. If that doesn't happen, that will be discussed at that time. Rob may be able to shine light on that.
Is that a case where eminent domain would be exercised?
Thank you, Commissioner Boutros. That is always an option. It's not something that we exercise haphazardly, and it's usually a last resort type scenario. The corridor of Farmway is Canyon Highway District 4 jurisdiction, but it will become and is coming into the city over time, and so the city works closely with Canyon Highway District 4. In a situation like this, the city does take the responsibility to obtain right-of-way from property owners that are not affiliated with the development, simply because it's in the city's best interest to negotiate directly with those property owners, as opposed to asking a developer to negotiate with a property owner where it's a conflict for the developer because they don't necessarily want to go through the process. And so the city will take an active role in that, and we've done this many times on many projects. And usually we can come to the end of the row with those property owners. If there was a case where a property owner was holding up an entire roundabout project, that is considered to be necessary for safety reasons and other reasons, then the city would look at other options. But we try really hard to work and be fair with all property owners involved so that we can be good partners with everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I have got a little bit more to ask. The fire department letter that was included is boilerplate. It's the standard fire department letter. And it seems like it should address the large number of homes that are going in with this application, 400 homes. It's self-evident that as demands on the fire department increase, their costs are going to increase and their response time may decrease. And this is me talking to the staff. Just future letters from the fire department should address these potential resource issues. It becomes difficult when we look at a large development like this to just say, yep, no problem for the fire department, because then that raises the question of whether they're overfunded.
Was there a question there?
No, that's a statement that we need quality responses, especially when the impact on the fire department looks like it's going to be pretty big.
Did you have something you want to follow up on?
Chair and Commission, we'll relay that over to the fire department.
Thank you.
I'm sure they'll love hearing
Thank you.
that. Is there any information about the large cutout that's in the center south of this development?
Chair and Commissioner, that is just another parcel that is not included in this or in the annex.
Is there any indication that that will be developed at some point, or is the intention that it be farmland? Or the reason I'm asking is, as a commission, I think it's incumbent on us to understand what the long-term projections are for the whole area. And because I use Farmway on a kind of regular basis, it looks like the potential of expansion for housing all along that road is enormous. Any insight there that can be shared?
Chair and Commissioner, yes, actually that parcel shares ownership with the development that's being proposed today.
So there's
So does that mean it's going to be developed at some point?
The applicant may be able to touch on that more based on conversation I had. They haven't had discussion with the developer at this time of that being developed.
My next question, it looks like may be addressed in the late exhibits, but we haven't had a chance to actually read those. The ITD letter that's dated April 7th, 2023 specified 2 road improvements needed as a result of this development. Are these included as conditions of approval?
Chair and Commissioner, I will look at that letter right now and give you an answer.
Thank you. I'll press on.
How about we take a pause if other commissioners have questions? We'll give you your voice a break. Any other commissioners?
Back to these.
We will come back to them for sure.
I just have a question for you guys. The one agency was concerned about the traffic and adding the bike paths and walkways between houses. Is that something that you guys think that is necessary or not?
Chair Commissioner, I apologize.
You want me
Could
to
please
re-say
repeat
that?
Yeah.
I know, I kind of figured that was gonna happen. The one agency that stated that they were concerned about the traffic in that area and wanted to suggested about putting, I think, compass, bike paths and walkways between houses or something. Is that something you guys feel is a concern and should happen or not?
Chair and Commissioner, the applicant does comply with our pathway requirements.
Okay.
We don't have a specific how they should be connecting at this point in time. They do provide connectivity, but what they're saying could potentially be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my question for staff, is those three small lots that are connecting it seems a bit, interesting that we're kind of, because part of the annexation has to be connected to touch our city, it has to touch our city limits. Does this happen often? It just seems like a small stretch, a big stretch to connect a really big, development, and I'm trying to reconcile that.
Chair and Commissioners, we do see this. I don't know that it's frequently that we see it, but we do see developments that have worked cooperatively with neighboring property owners to find that path of annexation. We also see conversations where maybe the other owners have found benefit in also being annexed, even though there's no future development, because it does make their properties more valuable if in the future they want to sell their properties. Yeah, so we do see it quite frequently. We had just not too long ago, at the beginning of the year, we had the city presented a package of annexation, and there was 30-some parcels involved in that entire annexation package. So it's not uncommon, I should say.
Thank you.
I just got one more quick one. And I didn't see in the thing, and I might have missed it, but there's a pool and a clubhouse. Is that correct? So is that stated when that has to start? Does that have to be started at the first phase? Because, and the only reason I ask this is because I've heard now several places that this hasn't been started and hasn't been finished. So I kind of think that needs to be a condition to these subdivisions.
In an
That if
earlier
they're
phase?
in an earlier phase, just to make sure they are finished and completed at the end and not just foregone and that's just a big grassy area.
Chair and Commissioner, I will have to check to see what phase those are included in, but I can
Okay.
get that answer to you right now.
Okay, appreciate it.
Commissioner Boutros or Larson?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify
Larson.
on the compass thing. So I guess I don't know how important they are or how significant their comments are, but their whole page just says everything's terrible. So I'm just wanting a reference on kind of where they're coming from and what their best, because their thoughts are good thoughts to add bike paths, but I'm just wanting a reference on who they are and why they really don't like everything. I mean, it was basically all red.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Larson, Compass is our metropolitan planning organization for the valley, and they are a valley-wide organization that receives federal funding, and then their obligation or responsibility is to distribute that funding throughout all the municipalities for road projects. Compass is basically looking at the valley at a 30,000-foot level, and so I personally have not seen their letter or what they have stated, and normally we don't receive comments from Compass, if I'm not mistaken. So I think this is a little bit unusual, and I would expect that a lot of their comments are probably boilerplate comments that they're trying to see throughout the valley. In a case like this, I would expect that our city code and our city master plans for pathways and things like that is what we would stick to. We're not going to change all of our pathways at the request of Compass and go against what we may have in our own master plans. And so that's what Compass's function is. And if I'm not mistaken, we don't normally receive Compass comments. Oh, you do? Okay. I am mistaken, apparently. But anyway, they look at the entire valley and they look at the transportation system as a whole and try to understand where the major issues are in transportation.
Yeah.
So then my question to you would be,
Yep.
would you suggest we add their conditions to add back bike pathways as a condition for approval, as it seems appropriate to help travel internally inside of the subdivision?
Throughout the development. Okay. I don't know if I don't really know how to answer that, honestly. I haven't studied every subdivision has sidewalks and it has residential roads. And typically within subdivisions themselves, we don't require pathways that circulate within a subdivision because they have sidewalks. What we look at more are pathways that connect subdivisions to other subdivisions that can be more regional, and I feel like that's probably a greater benefit. But that may be something that we can look at a little bit more and assess if there's anything there that we should be addressing.
Thank you.
And just as commentary, Compass does provide more boilerplate. This one was a bit more specific. This one seemed a bit more out of character from some of the others in talking about, it certainly had a less accommodating tone.
And I reviewed that same material, and I concluded that their low scores were at least in part due to the remote location. This development is going in a rural area.
Yeah.
If you look at the major intersections, both at Highway 55, it's an unimproved there's nothing there except a traffic light. And if you go north 4 miles to Simplot Boulevard, again, there's a limited amount of business there. So there aren't a lot of services very close to this development. I think the assumption is that over time, the expectation that Farmway is going to improve, and at some point, services are going to show up, and these kinds of scores, were they to do them again, would change. But it still is what it is. So one of my questions pertained exactly on this topic, and I'm asking, what can the developer do to improve scores like job creation, public parks, etc.? I noted that the review recommends adding bicycle and pedestrian pathways, and Highway 55 is about 1 mile away, and there are currently no businesses or services at Highway 55 to support growth along Farmway and Homedale. So that I think that kind of results in those things. I have a traffic impact study question, so I know Rob's going to have to end up answering this one. So the traffic impact study on page 55 of 178 describes the impacts on a number of intersections leading east from Farmway Road on Homedale and at north-south intersections with Farmway Road. Can the city engineer discuss what they know about Canyon Highway District and ITD plans to facilitate traffic flow along the arterials and to I-84? Also discuss which of these improvements require involvement, financial or construction by this developer, and if so, are in the conditions of approval. And I know what I'm asking you is generally outside the scope for how far the traffic impact studies go, but I think you would be able to shed light on what is actually happening in this overall area for traffic flow.
Thank you, Commissioner Boutros. Let me just address that briefly. So as most people know, ITD has a very major Karcher project that is designed and underway. Construction is supposed to start on the first phase in 2024, and that phase is the section between Farmway Road and Montana. So this development here is going to be adjacent to an ITD construction project that's supposed to start next year. So ITD had the comments about the turn lanes. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense because by the time this developer gets to building those turn lanes, ITD is going to be in there tearing everything out and rebuilding this entire road into a 5-lane highway. And so that's likely the reason that Steve didn't address that specific comment from ITD in the staff report. So when the city has jurisdiction over the requirements for this development, other agencies submit their comments to the city as recommendations, and then the city can decide if they want to adopt those comments or not. And we look closely at the comments, but in this case for ITD, I feel like those turn lanes are going to be addressed as ITD begins their construction project. ITD is improving Karcher Road from Farmway all the way to Middleton Road, and it's going to be a major 5-lane highway with a 30-foot median and 10-foot wide pathways on both sides that's going to be able to accommodate quite a bit of traffic. So that's one thing that's kind of a big deal here. This highway is being designed anticipating all of this development. And a lot of the traffic, I would presume, from this site that commutes to the east is going to be going straight down to this highway and then zipping out to Highway 84 to the east. Farmway Road is also a road that, as I mentioned before, is shared between the city and Canyon Highway District 4 in some regards, with responsibility and oversight as to what happens. The city and the Canyon Highway District 4 have commissioned, a couple years ago, we commissioned a corridor study of Farmway Road, which came back, and the results were the intersections that need to be improved and the road sections ultimately that will be built on that principal arterial. And so all of these roads have plans for development and improvement as time goes on, and those will be designed to be able to accommodate all this traffic that is going to be generated by these developments. In my opinion, the best developments we can have are the ones that are adjacent to these major roadways, because it gets the traffic out onto these major roadways, and it's not pushing traffic into these more smaller roadways or local roads. And so these locations tend to be better locations for development along these major roadways.
Thank you.
Other questions for staff?
I would, just for clarification, there was a letter included from Valley View School District. It was a very short letter, and if you could read that letter into the record so that everyone present understands Valley View's position.
Chair, Commissioner Boutros. Valley View's letter states, it was on February 21st, 2023. Dear Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission, the students within the 400 single-family lots in Chickasaw subdivision would attend West Canyon Elementary, Valley View Middle School, and Valley View High School. Currently, West Canyon Elementary School is the only school that is not overcrowded. However, it is helping Valley View School District absorb growth from newly approved developments in Central Canyon Elementary's attendance zone and Lakeview Elementary's attendance zone. Rather than attending Central Canyon or Valley View, pockets of students from the new development will be bused to West Canyon. Sincerely, Joseph Palmer, Director.
Thank you. So what I concluded from that letter was that Valley View is saying they actually have the capacity. So I think it's important to know that. Thank you.
Chair and Commissioner Harmon, I do have your answer about the amenities. A majority of those amenities are proposed to be in Phase 4.
Phase 4.
Yes, out of 14 phases,
okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. For staff?
There is, is the property owner Miles going to testify tonight?
I don't. There's.
Okay. So in the package, there's a letter from a property owner, Miles, M-Y-L-E-S, indicating a verbal agreement with the developer was reached and requesting formal agreement. Has that happened, and is it a condition of approval, or do we need to make it a condition of approval?
Chair, Commissioner, that is a written public comment that was submitted from the Miles, and we haven't specifically made any conditions that address that specific comment.
So hopefully we can address that tonight. Thank you.
All right. So I will ask the applicant to come up. I'm not sure who is here. I have no one signed up. Oh, okay. Go ahead and say your name and address into the record.
All right. Good evening, guys. So my name's Becky Izagari. My address is 2471 South Titanium Place, Meridian, Idaho, 83642. So good evening. I'm excited to present to you Chickasaw Subdivision. This high-end subdivision will offer luxurious homes with state-of-the-art amenities and breathtaking views with surrounding countryside. Chickasaw Subdivision is located on the southwest corner of Homedale and Farmway Road in Caldwell, Idaho. This project is conveniently located 2 miles from Lake Owl Reservoir, 2 miles from Walmart Neighborhood Market, and other commercial retail businesses, making this an ideal development for urban dwellers and outdoor enthusiasts. We are requesting an annexation, rezone, and preliminary plat of a 145.5 acre development called Chickasaw Subdivision. Our aim is to create a sustainable neighborhood with 400 single-family lots, 41 common lots, 36 drainage lots, and a minimum lot size for the single-family lots will be 8,500 square feet, and the average lot size is 8,586 square feet. The project will be constructed in 14 phases, fully complying with the comprehensive plan as staff has stated in the staff report. This development is subject to an existing municipal services agreement which outlines specific design and development criteria that we are committed to following. In addition to the 145.5 acre rezone and preliminary plat, we are requesting the approval of 3 additional parcels to be annexed into the city of Caldwell. All 3 property owners have signed the annexation cooperation agreements and have agreed to give enough right-of-way to accommodate the Farmway Road improvements. As you all know, the City of Caldwell and Canyon Highway District Number 4 have partnered to develop a corridor plan for Farmway Road, from the intersection of Karcher Road up north to Simplot Boulevard. As a part of our development, we will work with the city and the Highway District to reasonably accommodate this plan. Currently, Farmway Road is classified as a principal arterial with 2 lanes, no sidewalk or median, and a speed of 50 miles per hour. Homedale Road functions as a minor arterial with 2 lanes and a speed limit of 55 miles per hour. The improvements that we are making to the development will include the following. Maybe. By the way.
The suspense.
I know, right? Dun, dun, dun. Am I supposed to, oh, there we are. Farmway Road will have a varied width landscape buffer with a minimum of 41 feet and a maximum of 54 feet. There will be a max 8-foot tall landscape berm with a 3-to-1 max slope. Trees and shrubs will be planted along the tops and sides of the berm for additional privacy. There will be a detached 10-foot wide pathway with an 8-foot landscape buffer followed by curb and gutter. The corridor plan calls for a loon to be placed on the northern portion of the development on Farmway Road. This will facilitate a larger turning path for commercial vehicles. There will be a 20-foot emergency vehicle access off the loon onto the subdivision. There will be a right turn lane on Farmway at the intersection of Moss. Oh boy. Oh, there we go. Homedale Road improvements will have a 55-foot landscape buffer with a max 8-foot tall landscape berm and a 3-to-1 max slope. Trees and shrubs will be planted along the tops and sides of berms for additional privacy. There will be detached 5-foot sidewalk with a 10.5 landscape buffer followed by a curb and gutter. There will be an eastbound right-hand turn lane on Homedale at the intersection of Chickasaw Avenue. There will also be a northbound right turn lane on Chickasaw Avenue. As for the intersection of Farmway and Homedale, the city has conditioned us to construct a roundabout at the intersection of Homedale Road. Last but not least, Moss Street will have a landscape buffer width of 35 feet. There will be a max 8-foot tall landscape berm with a 3-to-1 max slope. Trees and shrubs will be planted along the tops and sides of the berm for additional privacy. Moss Street will be fully constructed just past Tribe Avenue. Then the road tapers and dead ends to a gated all-weather fire access road. In addition to the frontage improvements that I just mentioned, we will also extend a large sewer trunk line and water to the site. Sewer and water will be extended from Lonkey Lane down Farmway and water from 10th Avenue along Homedale. In conclusion, the City of Caldwell can look forward to a host of benefits from these proposed frontage improvements and utility extensions. Chickasaw Subdivision will focus on enhancing the quality of life for its residents while preserving the natural beauty of the area. Our vision includes detached sidewalks lined with beautiful trees, ensuring the safety and comfort of pedestrians while promoting an eco-friendly atmosphere. The incorporation of large landscape buffers will not only add visual appeal to the subdivision, but will also provide privacy and tranquility for the residents. These buffers will be bermed and sloped to further enhance the aesthetics and integrate seamlessly with the surrounding environment. One of the key highlights of Chickasaw subdivision is its dedication to open space and recreational facilities. With 10% of the area reserved for usable open space, we plan to create a vibrant community hub that features a pool area, pickleball courts, and 2 well-equipped playgrounds for families to enjoy. The connectivity is at the core of our design and philosophy. We propose a 5-foot wide micropath thoughtfully woven throughout the community to encourage residents to explore and engage with their surroundings. Additionally, an 8-foot wide pathway along the Burris Lateral will provide residents with a peaceful area to take a leisurely stroll. Oh, how do I go back? I double clicked it. I have the back. Oh, there we go. So this is our pathways plan here, and I just kind of wanted to address, there was a lot of chatter about connectivity within the development. So as you do see, we do have plenty of pathways, plenty of connectivity within the subdivision, and then as Rob did say that there are sidewalks throughout the subdivision, I do want to add that there are detached sidewalks throughout the subdivision, making the streets safer. So there is that. So as to ensure safety and security, the perimeter fencing will consist of Trex fencing and a durable, low-maintenance material that adds elegant touch to the community while giving residents peace of mind. The Chickasaw subdivision is not just another subdivision. It's a carefully planned community that prioritizes the well-being and happiness of their residents. We firmly believe this project aligns perfectly with the city's vision for sustainable living. Our goal is to create a high-level housing development that will elevate the area and set a high bar for both design and aesthetics. The design of the development is largely held to the requirements of the Municipal Services Agreement. In this agreement, there are very detailed development and housing standards. I'll be going over with you over in the next couple slides. So the housing and design standards for this development include variation in height, color, setbacks, materials, textures, trims, and roof shape. Variations in the shape and placement of windows, balconies, porches, and other facade elements. Minimum roof pitch of 6 to 12. Metal roof fence, valleys, trims will be black. High definition ridge or 30-year architectural shingles. 8-inch fascia board with a minimum of 1 inch by 4 inch trim. Gable end siding shall consist of material different than used on the house. Gable end vents shall be unique in design. 20% stone or stucco required on facades facing the street. 24-inch wrap around the corner of the home. Minimum 12-inch eaves beyond the exterior sidewall. Detached garages shall be architecturally completed and consistent in material and shall be situated on either the side or rear of the yard. Each dwelling shall contain a front porch, balcony, or courtyard. Corbels and craftsman-style posts shall be required. Second-story elevations to be set back or set forward from the wall pane a distance of 2 feet. So as you can see, we are held to very strict development standards and architectural standards, making this development unusually special as the design has already been decided upon.
And I'll let you kind of wrap your thoughts. That was a 10-minute timer.
Oh, gotcha. So I just wanted to state that we do have some issues with the conditions set forth, and we would like to ask for a couple of amendments to those conditions. So the first, we would like to ask that the condition, We would like to ask that if you look at page 21, number 14, under the conditions of approval, to summarize, the developer must record the final plat in successive intervals of not more than 1 year, as each measured from the date of signature approving the order of decision for the preliminary plat. So we're going to ask to amend the condition to state the developer has 2 years instead of a year to record the phase in successive intervals. The reason for this ask is the current review times have been taking much longer than expected from all the agencies. And it's oftentimes forced multiple time extensions. So this granting of this request would also reduce staff's workload and having to process multiple time extensions. So we just ask that get amended to 2 years instead of 1. The other condition that we would like to amend is located in the engineering memo on page 4, number 2, letter E. To summarize, it states that the applicant shall construct fully functional roundabout at the intersection of Homedale and Farmway with the first phase of development and prior to the final plat signature. We would like to amend this to state that the applicant shall fully construct a functioning roundabout prior to the platting of the 280th lot or phase 10. The reason for this ask is the first phase of development is expensive without having to construct a roundabout. We have to bring utilities down. It just is a very expensive phase 1. And we also, the traffic engineer did state that the TIS, in the TIS that the intersection is fully functional until you get to that 280th lot. And that's when that roundabout would be needed. One other ask that we would like to ask the commission to allow us, we would also like to ask the commission if we could work with engineering between now and the signing of the development agreement, or the MSA, whichever it is going to be called, to add some clarity to the requirements outlined in the engineering memo. We believe that we have some questions that we believe will be quick and simple to resolve. We just haven't been able to get in contact with engineering before this hearing to try and resolve them. And we kindly ask that you let us work with them while going through this process.
All right, you stand for questions?
I'll stand for questions.
Perfect.
I
Questions?
think I'd like to address these three points that were just brought up. Have these been discussed with you? And I would like to know staff's thoughts on granting these.
Chair and Commissioner, they did mention their concerns regarding 14, the phase subdivision. The code does allow for the 1 year, and there is a process to ask for a time extension with every phase. So what is in the conditions is what code allows.
So in fact, if there is an issue with them being able to meet the 1 year stipulated, there is a process by which they can ask for an extension.
That is correct.
So it sounds like we should not grant the condition of approval for 2 years.
That's correct.
Okay, go on.
To what?
The engineering, to amending, allowing them to not build the functioning roundabout until the 280th lot.
Chair and Commissioner Boutros, we spoke with the developer and the consultant yesterday regarding all of their concerns within the engineering memo. We did some back. This was specifically what they asked for, was to put some language in there in case there was a delay. What they're asking to amend right now is new to us. They have not brought this before us until just now.
Other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Larson?
Yeah, I just want to clarify in the 2 years, say it was normal to ask, what's a normal time frame to ask for? Or what's a process for us to adjust if they want the phases to be further out, or there is no such process?
Sounded like it was in code that it was 1 year.
And there's
with a way to ask for an extension on the 1 year if necessary. That's
Yeah.
already, the condition doesn't have to be granted. It's adequate as is.
So I guess I'm just clarifying, is 2 years reasonable if we said yes?
I'm hearing that 2 years is not allowable in code.
Not code.
Is that correct?
Chair and Commissioners, currently, the way the code reads, yes, it says 1 year, between successive intervals of phases. There is a method for them to request an extension, but the code does not have any language to allow for 2 years between the plats.
Okay. Other questions?
Sorry, there was a third topic that you wanted to hit, but you're not presenting that. Would you repeat that, please?
Yeah, so it's just kind of, we just want to continue to work with engineering. There was a bunch of things that we would like to clean up in the engineering memo, that we just didn't have a chance to get to talk to Rob between now and, we got the revised memo yesterday.
So the question is, are these substantive changes, and do they warrant a delay in coming back for a rehearing so that what ends up going to the city council is comprehensive?
Yes, so I don't believe they're substantial changes. We have sent them over to engineering and over to planning and zoning.
So can we get some feedback from staff on that topic?
I guess the clarification I'd like to, would ask for is, we did receive feedback yesterday that we addressed. Is there feedback in addition to that?
We do have additional feedback.
Is it just points of clarification in the staff report, or are you requesting other variances or changes?
No, points of clarification.
Okay. If it's points of clarification, I don't have any problem working with the developer so that we can just clarify maybe what the meaning is on that. If we find that we're not coming to terms on anything, or that our views of minor revisions or clarification isn't the same, then that would, I guess it would have to be addressed before it goes to city council no matter what. We'd have to be on the same page.
So I think we could rely on the discretion of staff in evaluating these, and if they determine they're substantial, that, I don't know, once the commission makes a recommendation for going to city council, can staff intervene and call it back based on substantial new evidence?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Chair and Commissioner, yes. Also, to clarify, based on the edits to the late exhibits, the engineering memo, and the FCOs, those are reflective of the comments when we worked with the applicant as well.
From yesterday?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions for the applicant?
Yes. So can you talk to that large cutout in the center of the development?
Yes, happily. Yep, that is owned by the same owner. It's not a part of the application, and there is no plans to develop it whatsoever right now.
What is its current use?
It's just farmland.
Is it going to continue to be farmed like that in the middle of a development?
That is correct.
Additional questions?
Yeah,
Commissioner
just
Larson?
clarifying. So it looks like phase 4 is where the clubhouse and pool will be built?
That is correct, yep.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yeah. I had mentioned that in the application package, there was a letter from a property owner, Miles, M-Y-L-E-S, and they wrote that they had reached a verbal agreement with the developer. Is there a formal agreement, and is there documentation on that?
Yes, so we did, and we actually also worked with another homeowner. I don't know, can you bring up the map of all the parcels? We actually worked with two homeowners. Deborah Miles, her parcel is kind of to the south, just below where the proposed Moss Street will be. And yes, we have worked with her. We are going to give her access, and it is on our pre-plat. We already have everything drawn in. So we can add a condition to hold up what we have already drawn into the pre-plat. But yeah, it's in the pre-plat,
Okay, well,
and it has been submitted to the city as is.
Do that, and you said there was a second agreement?
Yep. So there's a triangle parcel. Is there a pointer on this? Oh, yeah, okay. So there is a triangle parcel. Yeah. Well, kind of south. Yeah, right around there. So we're gonna provide him secondary access, which will be into the subdivision. That is what we're also providing that homeowner.
Okay.
And that's in the pre-plat.
That is
Plan.
also in the pre-plat, yep.
So
Yep.
we'll want to document the appropriate language of what was agreed to on both of those. Is this the right time to collect that, or?
You can certainly write it down, and it would be once we get to discussion.
So
So it would be,
Sure.
so ultimately, it was just to, maybe we can ask staff to ensure that the pre-plat plan aligns with kind of the conversations that have been had with homeowners.
Yep.
As a condition.
No, just, yeah. Other questions?
Let me get the names.
Well, one was in the public record, the other one isn't, so I'm not sure if,
I believe he is here.
okay.
Can I say the name?
Okay. Okay. Other questions? All right, thank you. So we
Thank
do
you,
have a
guys.
long list of individuals signed up to speak today. Just as I start calling you up, I'll ask you to, just remind, if you signed up, you'll come in, you'll state your name and your address into the record, and you'll have 5 minutes. We'll be pretty prompt because we want to make sure we get through everybody and everybody has an opportunity to speak. So the first column that I'll call are those that signed up as neutral, and the first person signed up is Terry Collins. Hello.
Hello there. My name is Terry Collins. I live at 16116 Homedale Road in Caldwell. I'm not related to any other Collinses in here. If you can pull up that picture again, which was the blocked out middle, and all of us know that certain section is farmed, but mostly for goose hunting. And the goose hunting is also south of there, and there's 2 other pits west of there. So this subdivision is going to have a little problem with that. The current plat of that 3rd acre, also, there's 200 acres total bought in that property, of which they took 1/3 of that out with that section taken out. They want 400 homes, which makes them maybe 5 to an acre. Everybody in that surrounding area has upper end homes, and the lots are at least an acre. We would request that they add in that middle section and then go to the 400 homes, so it gives them all a little bigger lot. We could probably agree with that. The touching law, I was talking to a city council member, and there was some concern he had that having those 3 properties touching may not be a more major touch according to what he understands of the law. He's not here, and we don't know if this is true or not, but that will be a question the city council will ask. The 4th problem is the access. All their accesses are onto Homedale Road. And that has a lot of farm machinery, sometimes taking up a lot of space. They're coming down the hill where I live, and it's a blind spot. So I can't see all those cars coming over the hill. And you're talking 400 homes, potentially 800 cars. That's a lot. And it's a blind spot for everybody up there. And having 800 more cars coming down that hill, it's going to disrupt the farm equipment. It's going to disrupt all the access onto Homedale and Farmway. There's another lot I can tell you about. It's a report by Michelle Hart, listed in 107.9 FM, and also reported in March of Idaho Press, March 23. And it says, the 6 most deadly intersections in and around Boise, where she cited analysis by the Fang Law Data firm, one of the 40 most deadly intersections in the entire United States is in Idaho. Studying fatal crash data collected by National Highway Traffic Safety Administration from 2019. The reported data collected by the they reported on the 6 most deadly intersections in the Boise area from 2010 to 2020. Farmway in Homedale was rated number 1. Ustick in Homedale, Farmway, number 2 in the whole Boise area. So that tells me this is 400 more homes. You're going to have a whole lot more problems there until they get that roundabout built, and it may help. Can Caldwell handle the increased sewer and water demands that these 400 homes are going to have if you annex them? You mentioned Valley View, and your comment said, and I'd like you to read that again, what they said, because I misunderstood thinking they moved everybody out to West Middleton or whatever, middle school, but they were overcrowded everywhere else.
Correct. That was the,
So they
that was the
cannot
gist of
handle,
it.
they cannot handle a bigger load of 800 students, maybe. So, if the 200 acres is not part of the impact zone and has been zoned agriculture, why are we approving this annexation and still a lot of property between Farmway and Homedale and Ustick hasn't been developed yet? There's a lot of property right there, and they've been approved over into Caldwell. Do you have any questions?
Nope.
I just, for staff, real quick,
Go ahead.
kind of, they maybe answer. That letter was written in February, correct?
Published in March 23rd of 23.
It was February.
The letter from Valley View.
Oh,
Fair.
He's referring to.
Yeah,
Chair and
no worries.
Commissioner, yes, that is correct, February 21st, 2023.
So now a bond has been passed, and we gotta assume and hope Valley View will build a new school, or start a new school, or add on, correct? In the time frame that this subdivision gets ready to at least get through phase 1 or 2.
In
that would
addition
be
to that, I'm sorry, in addition to that, you have to read what's there and what's not there in the Valley View letter. Previous Valley View letters for other developments said, they used the language, please delay or deny because we have no capacity. In this letter, what was important is they said, we will bus children from this development to this other school. They didn't say we don't have capacity.
Could we can check into that and find out, can they have a bigger letter?
We have the letter we have.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're certainly able to send, like, between now, because again, today we will only make a recommendation, which will go for council for approval, and so there's certainly opportunity. So if you, as a constituent of that district, if you indeed are, or whoever, can ask them for a letter.
I'm on Caldwell's side. Caldwell's
Yeah.
one, Valley View's on the
Sure.
other side.
But nonetheless, like,
yeah.
Valley View certainly probably has an opportunity to send a letter later for council if they would like to amend or add clarity. They would certainly
The
be
only
their
other thing I
prerogative.
have comment on is that, like we said, of the group of people that live around that, we would like to see them make the road improvements prior to building this, because it's gonna make it very dangerous.
So I would like to explore the topic that you brought up a bit with the city engineer. There was a hill that they're unable to get sufficient site distance over. Are you aware of that? And is that issue going to be dealt with the planned improvements?
Thank you, Commissioner Boutros. I am not aware of that. These roads in this area fall under the jurisdiction of Canaan Highway District 4. And I don't think that was addressed in their comments, but they did have they are very safety oriented, and that was one of the reasons why the roundabout was such a big deal to them, for an improvement and other things. But I have not looked at that specifically, and if that's something that we need to look at, I'm happy to take a look at that. One other thing to note, when the project goes to design, that's where our inspectors take a closer look at the design characteristics and where some of that geometry would be closely looked at. At this early phase of just the preliminary plat, we typically don't get into that kind of detail.
And if I'm not mistaken, there are standards for roads that are crowned for sight distance and speed limit and so on that are associated with safe use of the road.
Correct. There's geometry designs so that we don't have access points at dangerous locations.
I had a question for you before you left. How many acres is your home, and what
I have
was your?
about 37. I own 30 to the north of Homedale and 7 to the south.
And your suggestion was 1.5 acre size lots for all these houses?
Well, it would be, no, Moonstruck has that. We would like at least 2 to an acre.
2 to 2.5?
Whatever. But
Okay.
we're looking at 5 right now, the way it's looking.
Okay, I just wanted a reference.
Hit the neighbor, so,
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, so next person here did not check whether they wanted to speak or not. Ray Young, would you like to speak? Okay.
Just a little bit.
All right, go ahead and say your name and address, and then you'll have, no more than 5 minutes, please.
My name is Ray Young, and I live at 16703 Farmway Road, Caldwell, Idaho. And where my area is where they drew the little triangle against farmway, I'm the lower portion of that where I talked to the engineer and they gave me an access point because District 4 refused me when I had that lot sectioned off. I have 2.5 acres. They refused me access to that lot. Even though there's a shop and stuff, they left me with just only ag. The only thing they gave me was they would have to tear out my horseshoe driveway and make a universal driveway between the two lots, which is going to mess up. My house was built in 1946. It was the first house out there, so I'm not going to tear out my driveway. The engineer has granted me access on the lower portion. You can see there that they gave to that section. And they also, I needed my sewer, my septic is way low in the back of my property, down level with where their development's going to be. So I also asked for water and sewer to come from theirs, should they, determine later on, because I'm still going to be in the county, but I'm trapped against Farmway Road. So if they give me access, realize that there would be a meter attached to it, but they also were going to bring water and sewer down Farmway, which doesn't work for my home, but my well is in the front, so I could take water from Farmway. And I just I was wondering when they would make note of that, and she did bring it up. So that's all I have to say, is it traps me, and then depending on how they develop Farmway Road, whether I'll still be able to go both ways when I come out of my driveway, or are they going to put a median in there, widening it out? And of course, those houses on the other side of the street of Farmway are so close that the people end up parking on the street. So there's not much room to go that direction if they're going to widen it or whatever, but I realize that's probably dealing with the county.
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Deborah Miles signed up to speak. Hello.
Thank you for bringing notes up to it. We are the property that's been in discussion there.
Will you say your name and address?
Yeah,
into
thank
the
you. My
record?
name's Deborah Miles. My address is 16054 Westfield Lane, Caldwell, Idaho. I am the one subject that the property, my parcel number on one of those maps was R326710100. We have been in discussion with Becky multiple times through email and in person at some of the public hearings, but we have not received any verbal, in-depth conversation about providing this access. She did give me a picture of something that was on a plat, but we would definitely like something more written. So in my letter to you guys is my property and Moss Road is only really about 10 feet. I know we said 70 feet, but it could be that whole thing. So if you say 400, I know you times that by 3, so you got 1,400 cars. And if that's an access road, I can't get out of my road. So I'm willing to eliminate my road. I just got to get out. And I understand that Farmway has some development things going on there well. And so I guess one of my questions for you was, when will Moss be created, like developed? When does it need to be developed for homes to get in and out of Moss? And then when will Farmway's expansion kind of take place? Because that kind of leaves me in a little pickle how I'm getting out and in on our property.
Like the roundabout, is that what you're referring to?
There's no roundabout for Moss and Farmway.
Gotcha.
It's just right now it's kind of scheduled as a right turn, and we've got 14 or whatever homes coming out. It's the only access besides Homedale. So if something ever happens on Homedale, it's the only way out for them. So we will have 1,400 homes coming right beside us, trying to all of us get out on one. And I only got 10 feet. It's going to be a very big concern with that. Not to say that if we can only turn right, that means all the beautiful things that Becky talked about, the grocery store, the hospital, everything that we have to go left for, there's no way for us to get turned around to go back. You send us back out to Karcher, going down another avenue, and then zip-zinging back, trying to get back to a hospital or even a grocery store. So those are some of my concerns of how that's kind of all going to be navigated.
So the timing on your request is not something that we can address.
Okay.
What we can address is establishing a condition of approval for this application so that the developer works both with you and with Mr. Young. And I would suggest that you get that in writing with them as soon as possible, because the next review cycle would be before the city council.
So could it be on contingency now that they work with me for that?
We're willing tonight to establish a condition of approval that they work with you.
Okay.
But whether or not the agreement that you reach is satisfactory, if you do reach an agreement, once we approve this and establish the condition, then the next review cycle is at the city council.
Okay. Oh, yes. So there was some talk about some landscaping on Moss, and we wondered if that was going to be on the south and the north side as well as a buffer. We're not sure what that is in detail, so we wanted to know what that kind of meant.
So those might be really good questions to address with them. We, as a commission, it's probably not questions that we certainly aren't able to answer them. Typically, it's going to be on the property, the side of the property and of the project location. But I would encourage you to have get some of those details with staff or with Becky directly, because they do have some of the renditions and stuff, so they may be able to show you more specifically. But that wouldn't necessarily be a thing that we would do here as a commission at this very moment.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Larry Miles, did you want to speak? Okay. All right. So that moves us into those that signed up for opposition. I have Mary Jo Pegram chose not to speak. Is that still correct? I don't know where she. Correct. Okay. But it's noted in the opposition column. Dennis Pegram did not mark, so would you like to speak? Donnie Pegram, no. Oh, excuse me. Donnie, okay. Then we have Gary Metlader. Right. It is that, sorry. Would not like to speak? I just have one question. You can come up and address your name and address, and we may or may not be able to answer questions, but you certainly can offer us your testimony.
My name is Gray Metlighter. I live at 16620 Farmway Road, Caldwell, Idaho. My one question is when are they planning on widening Farmway?
Should request that Rob answer the question.
Sure.
Thank you for the question. Farmway Road is planned to be widened at some point in the future, but it is currently not funded to be widened. It's a very major project. On a roadway like Farmway, typically your safety areas tend to be the intersections, and so the focus initially is going to be on the intersections to try to improve those. The widening is more of a factor of capacity, and currently as a two-lane road, Farmway has the capacity for north-south traffic. It's the intersections that are the problems. And so you'll see intersection improvements happen first, but hopefully within the next 5 to 10 years, we can try to get some major federal funding to put together some widening projects along Farmway Road. That's what we'd be shooting for. So hopefully that answers your question.
Well, I guess it's about as good as it's going to get.
Thank you. All right, then we had Angie Mitletter. Did you want to speak? Okay. And then we have William Garner, I believe, signed up to speak. Name and address into the mic for the record, and no more than 5 minutes, please.
My name is William Garner. I live at 16071 Homedale Road. I'm kind of in the, northeast corner, of the property. Yeah, that longer yeah, right there. That's where I am. My primary concern is also the traffic on, Farmway or Homedale Road as I access Homedale Road, each and every day. The traffic on Homedale Road is already building and, getting worse, particularly with that intersection. A question I have is, with the roundabout, which I agree will help, is it a 1-lane or a 2-lane roundabout?
Can staff offer some clarity on that? It's a good question. The roundabout 1 lane or 2 lane?
So the roundabout for Homedale Road is proposed to be a multi-lane, and that is simply because Homedale Road itself will be a multi-lane road when it's completed. So typically, the way this would work out is the roundabout would be built to the ultimate size, and then the road widening north and south comes in after the fact. Homedale Road, that roundabout has not started design yet, and so I can't tell you for certain how it's going to end up for the initial design, but there is the roundabout at Ustick is currently in design, and it would be a multi-lane roundabout that currently has taper lanes in and out of the roundabout to accommodate the single lane north and south traffic on Farmway Road.
Okay, I'm going to recommend that it be a 2-lane, if that's what you're saying, where you can go left or you can go right
Or
around, rather than everybody going around.
Sure.
That will make it even better. However, when you look at 400 homes all dumping out primarily on Homedale Road at an average of 2 cars per home, and I think in the previous hearing, the gentleman said with children, it's an average of 3.5 cars per family. You're talking over 1,200 cars trying to get out on Homedale Road. And when you're looking at the primary busy rush hours between 7 and 9 in the morning and 5 and 7 in the evening, that intersection is going to be crazy. There's just going to be no way for that intersection, even with a 2-lane roundabout, to handle that kind of traffic. It's just, and with the traffic going north and south on Farmway, a lot of that truck traffic that's going from I-84 to Highway 55, lots of truck traffic. That's going to ball up that intersection even worse. So the primary concern is the traffic. I don't know any way around it. There's just no way to handle that kind of traffic. Some of my, well, the most of my rest of my comments relate to me personally. I realize I'm one small fish in a big pond, but it sounds like a tidal wave's coming in and I'm going to be tossed out of the pond. My wife and I purchased that home 13 years ago, primarily for a rural environment. There's farmland all around us, great quality of living. One of the things that was addressed in the presentation was this development will provide gorgeous views. My views are going to suck after this housing development goes in. Again, I'm one little fish in a big pond, built for quality of life. My quality of life is going to suck when this housing development goes in. Again, I'm just one person. Let's see, make sure. Oh, currently I have almost 2 acres, and I'm trying to subdivide the one of those acres for my daughter and son-in-law to build a home. And so we're going through this same process of trying to get approval from the county. Well, one of the requirements that was made for this to be approved is my access road that comes into my home had to be widened. It wasn't wide enough because now there's going to be 3 homes using that access. So we had to move a power pole. We had to move a telephone connection box. We had to lay covert down the drainage ditch and cover it so that the farmland around it had drainage. So far, I've got about $80,000 invested in these improvements to be improved. Now I'm told that my road, my private road, is going to be closed. And I now are going to have access. I have to go into this housing development to get access to Homedale Road. I have to weave around all these roads to get onto Homedale Road. Well, now I have about a 100-yard straight access to Homedale Road. That's going to suck. It would have been nice to know that this was going to happen before I invested $80,000 for these improvements to happen. And we still haven't got it approved. We're still in that improvement process. So who knows what else the county is going to require. So that sucks, if you will. There was one of the amendments that was suggested. I tried to annotate it. Page 4, number 2, letter E, was asking that the roundabout not be developed.
Okay, just so you can finish that sentence, but go ahead, just finish your thought, yes, quickly.
Not be until the 280th home is built. I'm going to recommend you disapprove it. I would recommend that the roundabout be approved and funded and built before this housing development is approved. I know that's probably impossible to do, but that's my request.
Thank you for your comments. All right, so he was the last individual to sign up. So with that, I will ask the applicant to come up for her final 5-minute rebuttal.
All right. So I just want to remind everybody that this development, 400 lots, is not coming all at once. 400 lots is coming in 14 phases, meaning 14 years. We have a year per plat. Each phase probably has 20 to 30 lots in it. So 400 cars are not going to be dumping out onto Farmway Road in the next couple of years. And we do have significant roadway improvements planned in the next, 5-10 years. Homedale Road, Farmway Road, as we've discussed, there will be a roundabout built to accommodate the traffic. So there's that. So the do you want to address a couple other issues regarding the two, Deborah Miles and then Ray Young? We are happy to add something to the engineering memo stating that we're going to give them access and give them a stub, like Ray, give him a sewer and water stub, whether it be on Farmway. Probably on Farmway would make sense. But yeah, we're happy to do that. As far as the school district goes, a new bond was passed, so hopefully they will use that to build more schools. And I do want to remind everybody that development is rapidly moving west. There's a pretty large development that was pointed out in staff's presentation that is coming out. There are a couple large developments coming out this way, so we're not the only ones out here. And I do want to say that the increased lot size is not financially viable for people trying to buy homes. So we already have a housing shortage. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s and I can barely afford a home. So I mean, it is ridiculous, the housing costs. And if you require people to build larger homes, that just puts people like me out of reach of buying a home. So I would ask you to take that into consideration as well. So as far as the views, the homes around this development, the views will be a landscape buffer, like a max 8-foot landscape buffer with trees and shrubs and grass. I mean, you're not gonna be looking at homes and a stark vinyl fence. And we did take that into consideration. And there will be detached sidewalks, 10 foot on Farmway, and then there will be a 5-foot detached sidewalk. on Homedale Road. So there's gonna be quite a significant buffer there. Let's see what else. As far as access being taken away and access having to come into the subdivision, the gentleman, William Garner, was talking about, that was a condition set forth in the engineering memo. That was news to us. We did not see that coming, and that's one of the conditions that we are trying to work with staff on, is trying to eliminate that. We can't require that, and I don't know who can. So yeah, that is not a condition that we put forward or want, frankly. We don't want to eliminate anybody's access, existing access. But I believe that did address everything. I do want to bring, the developer is here. He's going to talk about kind of what's going on with that 48-acre parcel in the middle, if you don't mind.
He'll just you'll still have that 5 minutes. He's still part of your 5 minutes.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Marty Goldsmith, 6145 West Econove Drive in Garden City. The 58 acres is in a complete different ownership, and it will remain agricultural for the short term, but you should count on development going forward. So is there any other questions on that 58 acres that you guys may have as far as it's an out parcel?
It's how tightly it's going to be integrated with the Chickasaw development, and whether there were going to be other access roads. But it sounds like it might be preliminary to be thinking about that.
No, I'm not sure if this would be the time for that discussion, but I appreciate the forward perspective.
Okay. Yep. So I think that's what I'm here to clear up, is that it is in a different entity and it's under different management.
But it will be developed.
Yep.
Right. I have a question for Becky.
Okay. Becky, do you mind coming back up to the podium for a couple final questions?
Yes.
So I'm concerned that when Mr. Garner gave his testimony, that it was not clear to me how his access was being affected. What I would like to do is to have a working relationship between you and Mr. Garner to see if there is a way to solve his problem. This is not the right place to work the details of that, but if we could add that working relationship to the condition of approval so that you can try to solve his problem, are you agreeable to that?
Yeah, absolutely. We are actually wanting to work with staff to maybe strike it. I'm not sure who can require that. It was news to us, and we will certainly work with the homeowner. Absolutely. It's just news to us on how that actually works.
Director Collins?
Chair and Commissioner Boutros, the original engineering memo did have some language about permanently removing the access, but after speaking with the applicant yesterday, in the newest memo, we struck that out. That's been removed.
Right. No, she is correct, 100%. So that could have been from an old staff report that he was talking about.
So the gentleman's concern has been resolved in the newest memo?
Yes, I would believe so, yes.
It may be helpful to have a conversation after with staff as an aside to get that clarity.
But it sounds like we don't need to put that as a condition of approval.
Correct. It sounds like it was struck.
But we will work with them. Yeah, 100%.
I think it's just a confusion because there was an original memo and a new one, and the owner may not have seen the new one where that has been removed.
Since it was just yesterday.
Chair and Commissioners, that's correct, because that was the original memo. As of today, when staff was presenting, we entered into the public record a late exhibit of a revised engineering memo that has those conditions removed. And so those aren't going to be online yet. Those were just given today because we just got them.
So to just encourage, it sounds like there's still some clarification that could be offered after this hearing.
Correct. We can actually share the memo with him so he can see it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm actually a neighbor. Sure. Yeah, so, sorry about that. Just with, we've already had the opportunity for public testimony. You can ask staff of where they get the list the staff gets lists from the county. So maybe Katie can offer you some of that information. Any additional questions for?
Thank you.
I had a question for Rob.
Well, they're usually just.
Was there a traffic impact study on this one because of the 400 people, or was there not enough cars?
Yes, there was a traffic impact
Do
study.
you have the percentage that's going east, west, north, south? And you could give us a rough estimate? It's just useful to know where we think they're going.
Give me just a moment here. Okay. So, according to the traffic impact study, and if I had the ability to put it up on the screen, I would, but I don't. So, the traffic impact study calls out that on Farmway, south of the site toward Karcher is about 47% of the development traffic. Once you get to Karcher, 5% west, 45% east. North on Farmway, north of Homedale, is about 15% of the traffic estimated. And then on Homedale Road, west of the site is estimated about 2%, and then east of the site is estimated about 25%. So that's generally what I would expect, where people are being drawn to, and so that's seems fairly probably pretty accurate. And that's per the traffic impact study that was conducted by a licensed traffic engineer.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, so appears we've come to the end of our testimony. So with that, I would entertain a motion to close public testimony.
I'll make a motion to close.
It's Commissioner Larson. Is there a second?
Harmon,
excuse me. I looked over and looked at you and said your
Second.
name. Commissioner Harmon made the motion, and Commissioner. Now I'm just saying words. Commissioner Larson made the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. I'll start. I'm going to be really. I'm struggling just with the philosophy behind annexing those three parcels to create a really big annexation into an area that is kind of far away. I mean, the picture here on the screen, really far away from from the city proper and amenities and stuff like that. And I get it's happening, but I think this creates a kind of a inauthentic, kind of forced experience and from a philosophical perspective, I can't support right now.
You're just against the north portion, those three?
Well, I think all of it is, so our action today is an annexation, which, I mean, well, it's the annexation and then the preliminary plat. Yeah, so I struggle with just kind of, the annexation is the requirement, is the first step that's needed to allow for the other things to happen. And I'm struggling with the annexation and what it's doing, because I mean, we look, it's so far away from the rest of that area. Certainly, I recognize development is coming, and I think development needs to be natural, and this feels a bit forced for me.
I had that same impression. When I looked at it, I wondered what was the advantage of getting annexed into the city for this development, to the extent that they had to do that very strange reach into the Caldwell city limits. And I didn't understand what that advantage was to them. so it's whether or not a development occurs in the county or whether it occurs in the city. And is it in the best interests of the city of Caldwell to allow even a strange annexation like this? Or I don't have enough information to really make a decision on the merits of doing a reach like this. When it's clear and there's a significant natural growth, as you put it, that's not really a question anymore.
I have a question for Rob again. So,
testimony was closed?
Yeah, unless it's a clarification or point of order.
yeah, he's staff. Staff's always free to harass.
It,
If this was given back to the county and then they theoretically do this exact same thing and the county approves it and they need to adjust those roads, does the city have any help in improving those roads, or how would that work if it goes back to the county?
So Commissioner Larson, that's a great question. This, because this development falls within the city impact area, they're still required to construct to city standards. The benefit of having them not annex and develop in the county, there really is no benefit to the city for that. The annexation path that they have proposed, according to everything I understand about the state requirements, it meets all of annexation requirements. They talk about annexation shoestrings and things like that, but this is not applicable to that definition because it's not trying to annex along a roadway or a public right-of-way. This is actual dwelling properties, you know, that have residences on them, and so there's no issue with the annexation path from a legal standpoint. And annexations to this nature happen, you know, all over the city. If a development's coming in and they're going to be pulling water and sewer and using water and sewer, city water and sewer, we would prefer them to be annexed anyway, so that there's a tax base going back to the city for some of these, for the utilities and some of those things. And so to deny it because we don't like the way it's annexing, it may be questionable, but in my opinion and everything I know about the annexation processes, there's nothing that's not legal about what they're proposing to do.
And to be clear, I wasn't questioning the legality. I think there's a philosophical perspective that we as individual commissioners get the right to make a vote and have an opinion on that. And I think part of that also is part of the testimony that I hear about safety and some of these other things that are legitimate that are also part of the calculus in which we make our individual decisions. And so I think that's where I stand with that, Commissioner Harmon.
Well, I mean, I was with you too on some of this, and then I was hoping that would get clarified, that how legal that was or how that was into code. But my only thing is if we do approve it, I don't think we should, I think we should keep all the conditions the city's made to them and not let them extend, you know, past the 1 year. You know, the roundabout needs to get completed quickly. I don't think moving all that off, I mean, you know, going into a development, you are going to spend a lot of money, so whether you're going to spend it up front or down the road, I mean, that's just my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm. Others?
I agree that we should not grant those amendments. I'm on the fence with regard to the way they're trying to annex it. It's an obvious reach. If it really does benefit the city, then I could be persuaded, but I would like to hear more.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd have to go with it just because it meets the standards. That's what we're here for. So.
Commissioner Larson?
No, the reason I was clarifying is because I just wanted to know if the tax money goes to the county or to the city and how the roads would be adjusted if we got it to get the city of Caldwell, or if the county got it, how it would work out in the grand scheme of things for the roads and the people. And I know at the last council meeting that they wanted, there was a similar thing, same idea. It was out in county area and they wanted the homes to be larger because they're like, hey, if you're near the county, your home should be of a similar size to kind of transition from large home, 36 acres, to 4,000 square foot lot just is very severe. So, that's why I'm kind of waffling here on they look like really nice homes, but their lots aren't.
Isn't that
Similar.
that'd be city council's decision anyways, not ours.
Yeah, I'm just giving it, if we approve it, it's gonna go to them.
Well,
Yeah, they're
it'll
8,000.
go to them regardless.
Yeah, it'll go to them, but that was their thought on the last one that looked almost exactly like this. And they continued it because they said we need to know the home sizes. And so that's my same thought, is if we approve this, or deny it, that's one of my thoughts that's in my mind.
Director Collins, would you be able to talk about the advantages of city versus county and how the development might occur differently depending on which has jurisdiction?
Chair and Commissioner Boutros, I guess what I can say is there are a lot of advantages to a piece of property being in the city. One being the added services that those properties will get from emergency services, but also just from infrastructure as far as, curb, gutter, sidewalk, utilities. Your value of your property typically goes up when you're in the city limits. So if you ever want to sell your property, it's of more value. Typically, when we're looking for businesses to come in to our city, they want to live within those city limits. So that's another benefit for economic development, when you're recruiting businesses into our community. And we do know that we do have a shortage right now of homes and the smaller homes, because really the shortage is more the younger families that can't afford the homes, or the retail workers, the school teachers, the firemen, the entry-level police officers that don't make enough money to even maybe purchase a home in Caldwell. And so, there is a shortage of that housing market. These lots are really not that small. The R1 zone, they do require a minimum of 8,000, and they do have, I think they said to go up to 8,600 square feet. I was at the city council meeting when they presented the other project where you did have county rural areas next to the urban areas, and I can just attest that part of that too is when you're purchasing property and you're in an impact area, you really have to be proactive to go look at that city's comprehensive plan, because they're not asking for a comprehensive plan amendment. It is our future land use map calls for single family R1. They're not asking for upzoning or anything. Their densities are low within this subdivision. They are providing a lot of landscaping. We as staff feel it's a really good project. The other benefits to this project is they are helping bring a lot of transportation infrastructure improvements that are going to occur probably sooner than later, because that roundabout construction is very, very expensive, and they're taking that on as part of this development. So that's a huge benefit to the city, but also just to the surrounding area. The utility extensions are huge as well, because that's going to open up opportunities for providing services to other properties that are out there that may not have city utilities. And having city utilities a lot of times is more reliant. You'll get more capacity, more pressure, water pressures and those types of things. So I think it's a great project. I don't know if our city engineer wants to add anything else to that, or.
I do want to, It sounds a bit more like we're adding more testimony to the record now.
Sorry.
So, I do want to cautious us with that. And part of it is because I think part of that is when I look at the previous map that was up, is when I think about services, now we're even further away from fire departments, from the police stations, when we start doing these things again, I think it's great. I think the development would be awesome if it made sense, like if it fit somewhere. Like it looks super lovely. I think the amenities look great and the plan looks great. My concern again is kind of how it's placed, its relationship to services, and the impacts thereof. Because again, there's this inauthentic extension, which kind of leaves this out, which there'll be Caldwell citizens that are going to be really far away from other things now. Because as if we're not building out in a strategic manner and have the next grocery store there, the next and again, that's not the city's role necessarily, but those are amenities that people need to live, and it impacts travel time, and it does impact some of these other things.
And certainly what you're saying conforms with what the Communities in Motion review checklist showed,
Mm-hmm.
that there's not enough services out where this is going in.
Yeah. So we can have more discussion, or we can see where we land with a motion, and I would entertain a motion.
Okay.
So I would entertain a motion from whomever.
Want to do a motion to deny?
I'm going to vote to deny it regardless. So what? How? So I can make the motion that way if somebody.
Please do.
Okay. So based on the testimony and evidence and the record on this matter, hold on, let me make sure I'm reading the right one. I am. Okay. So based on the testimony and evidence in the record in this manner, and upon findings of the facts and conclusions of law set forth herein, do hereby determine and move as follows: the request for ANN 23-2, ANN 23-3, ANN 23-4 to annex parcels R21, 581, R2, R32, 668012000, and R21, 582, with a requested zoning designation of R1 is denied.
Second?
There's a second. So that initial motion was from Commissioner Zamora. Second was from Commissioner Boutros. Roll call, please.
Chair, I just want to interrupt you. You need to
there's
say
more.
recommended for denial. You're not.
Oh, I skipped that. I'm sorry. I will modify my motion to recommended for denial.
And I need to add that as part of that, you have to state your reasons for recommending denial.
So recommend for denial because of the annexation, kind of that inauthentic annexation way to creating this development. Do I need to read the preliminary plat and the other ones too? Denial, all those three? Okay, so then additionally, so that's that.
Chair, I'm sorry, you do not. Well, no, you do. I'm sorry, because you're not the final approving board. So yes, you need to read the other ones.
So then, so in addition to that, request for ANN 22-000028 to annex parcel R32-66801-300 with a request designation of R1 to include approval of the associated development agreement is denied for the same reasons above, and the request for recommend for denial because of the same reasons above. And then the request for SUB 22-00045 for preliminary plat for the Chickasaw subdivision, a single-family residential subdivision consisting of 400 single-family building lots, is recommended for denial for the same reasons noted above.
Second.
So that was Zamora that made the motion, and a second from Commissioner Boutros. Roll call, please.
Zamora?
Yes.
Harmon?
No.
Larson?
Yes.
Boutros?
Yes.
All right, so we have taken action on that, so we will close that public hearing and move on to our next one, which is action item, so open public hearing for action item CPM 236 and ZON 236. The City of Caldwell is requesting a comprehensive plan land use amendment from open space for OS to HDR high-density residential and a rezone of C2 commercial to R3 high-density residential for the approximately 0.82 acres, parcel 835287104A0 to include approval of resolution 152-23 associated with CPM 236. The subject parcel is located on the south side of Thomas Jefferson Street, approximately 124 feet east of the intersection of Smead Parkway and Thomas Jefferson Street in Caldwell, Idaho. And with that, staff report. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Morgan Bisa. I'm just going to go ahead and skip over the application numbers since you read them all into the record for me. The application in front of you this evening is for a city-owned, it's a city-initiated application because it is a city-owned parcel. It is .82 acres. The parcel is located approximately 825 feet east of Thomas Jefferson Street and Smead Parkway. In the map on the screen, it is the parcel highlighted in red. The application is for a comprehensive plan land use map amendment from open space to high-density residential designation, as well as a rezone from C2 commercial to R3 high-density residential. On the screen in front of you, you have two maps. You have the zoning map, existing zoning map on the left, and the existing comprehensive plan map on the right. On the right, for the comprehensive plan map, the green is the open space, red is commercial, yellow is medium density residential, and blue is industrial. So as you can see, the parcel is designated as open space. There is no high-density residential designation on the comprehensive plan in the immediate vicinity. However, you can see in the zoning map on the left, purple is high-density residential. So there is high-density residential zoning within 330 feet of the subject parcel, only one parcel away. To the north of the site is Lexington Sky, which is a multi-family residential project. It is 84 units, and it is 23 dwelling units per acre. This is zoned commercial, not high-density residential, because this was approved when multifamily residential only uses were permitted in commercial. However, it would be compatible with the R3 zoning designation. Today, for a 23-unit dwelling units per acre multifamily project, that would be an R3 zoning designation use. To the east of the site is Thomas Jefferson Charter School. To the south of the site is a city park. And to the west of the site, there's an undeveloped parcel. And one further parcel to the west would be the Idaho Department of Commerce and Labor building, and then a light industrial development. Here are photos of the subject parcel. The first is looking at the site from Thomas Jefferson Street. The picture immediately below it is if you turn right around and look north at the multifamily residential project. In the top right corner is looking at the site from the view of the charter school, and then the bottom right corner would be looking from the site at the charter school that I mentioned. So this parcel, as I mentioned, is designated as open space in the comprehensive plan. This is likely due to this parcel being city-owned and adjacent to the existing city park to the south. However, the open space designation in the comp plan does limit what can be developed on the site. The city is preparing to sell this parcel, and we were submitting this application looking at what zoning designations make sense for this site. Being that this site is surrounded by schools, park, high-density residential projects, it seems very compatible with a high-density residential zoning. As we mentioned before, it's within 330 feet of another R3 parcel. And this R3 zone designation would provide a buffer and transition from the industrial and commercial uses to the west to the single-family residential development to the east. You can see that purple was the R3, the yellow is medium-density residential, but the whole development together, the purple and the yellow in that bottom right map, is a single-family residential development. No development is proposed on this parcel at this time. Everything that we normally talk about with code, utilities, landscaping, parking, access, etc., that will be evaluated at the time that someone comes in to develop this site. All the typical agencies were noticed, as well as the public, and we've received no agency comments and no public comments on this rezone. Staff does find that the proposed request is in compliance with the Caldwell City Code and is in conformance with the Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment and aligns with 7 existing policies within the plan that talk about providing housing where there's already transportation, utilities, water, sewer, etc. And staff recommends that if the project is approved, the request is subject to the conditions as specified in the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and order decision. And if you went through those conditions, they were basically the typical conditions that, if someone chooses to annex, they will have to comply with codes at the time of development. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Questions for staff?
I have a
Commissioner
question.
Boutros.
I have a question about everything. I didn't see a basis to justify the requested comprehensive plan amendment and the rezone. The current designation should be reviewed with due diligence by a comprehensive plan review team and with public input. This is a problem that I've had with wholesale comprehensive plan amendments. A lot of the amendments that we've seen come before the commission have been well justified because it's something that is surrounded on a couple of sides by something else that justifies that. That's not the case in this one. It's got open land around it right now, and you kind of have to reach across the open land to point to a multifamily development as justification for this being an R3. I really would like to see the comprehensive plan go through the total process of detailed review, public comment, so that we have confidence that what's in the comprehensive plan is what the citizens of Caldwell want. I know that you've picked out there was the park, and then there is this that are tiny little, relatively small parcels that look like you're just cleaning up problems in the system. But 0.82 acres isn't really that small, and the location that it's in, so you talk about no development being planned, that's because no buyer has come in. If we did this and it was sold next week, and then a buyer wants to put in a multifamily thing, it would look like a sore thumb for what's around it right now, especially considering that it's adjacent to a park. I would like this to go as one of the items to be part of the next planned comprehensive plan review.
Is there a question in there?
No, that was a statement.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? I guess I was getting confused. I was seeing it. So the top left is the current comprehensive plan.
Correct.
The bottom right
Is zoning?
is
the current zoning,
Okay.
yes.
So that little piece is right in the middle of, what was red again? Sorry.
Commercial services.
Correct.
Yeah.
And on the bottom, so the existing zoning, I don't think I touched on it very much. It is currently zoned commercial. So if something were to develop there today,
Yeah.
it would be a commercial project.
Yeah.
If there was no proposed rezone, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the city was just looking at it so far as, what makes sense to go next to a school, homes or commercial development. It's
Yeah, and it depends on the kind of commercial development and what's compatible with what's around it. So all of that gets factored in. And I'm not suggesting that a rezone like this is inappropriate. What I'm suggesting is it needs to go through the proper review by a larger team and with public input, which is what I believe how the comprehensive plan gets built and amended.
Questions? Other questions? If not,
I had one.
Oh, go ahead.
So the charter school that's next to it, is that technically part of Valley View School District because it's a charter school? Did they get technically notified? Not that it matters,
they would have been
They did?
notified, yes.
But I guess my question is, are they part of Valley View School District because they're a charter school, or you had to notify them separately?
So that's not how you enroll at a charter school. So
So-
you have to apply.
yeah, it's separate from Valley View.
So you did, because I
So
didn't see anything
we
from them, that's why I was
notified
asking.
the charter school separately as an adjacent property owner. So they were invited to neighborhood meeting, to this hearing, with a letter as an adjacent property owner. Valley View School District was notified as a public agency with our public agency
within the
distribution letter.
Boundary, correct.
And neither provided comment.
Yeah, which is totally fine. I was just clarifying from a standpoint of, I believe that charter schools are separate from
Yeah.
public schools, and so if you sent one to just Valley View, I don't think that the Thomas Jefferson would have been notified. It was my question.
Correct.
And they may also have looked at it as, we don't enroll based on geographic location, we enroll based on people who apply.
Yeah.
True.
All right, other questions? If not, the only person signed up as neutral, Jody Endicott, is not wanting to speak. Is that still correct? Okay. All right, so any final comments from staff before we close public testimony?
I have nothing else. Did you have anything you'd like to add?
I guess I will just add that this property is under contract. It has been auctioned off. And it will not close escrow until and if this gets approved.
Are you suggesting the mayor may be a bit miffed at us if we deny?
No, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just trying to give you a backstory of we have had interest in this property. The person that was interested in it has put in the bid for auction. It's on hold right now. Staff did analyze it, not based on anything other than we know that there's a lot of parcels in our comprehensive plan that don't make sense. The city auctioned it because it's excess property. The city doesn't want it or need it. It doesn't serve a purpose because there's no taxes being paid on it right now. Because it's currently listed as open space, obviously it's very limited of what can be developed on it because it is more for like a park or a public agency that owns it. As we started looking at the surrounding area, like Morgan mentioned, there's already medium density residential next to it. Across the street from it is high density residential that's being built. And as we started looking at part of our comprehensive process is to look at some of these smaller commercial lots, particularly in locations along Cleveland Boulevard that may be good for those higher density, taking into consideration that we've had comments from council and the public that, yes, they recognize there's a need for higher density, but then there's an issue when you locate them next to single family. So again, trying to look at, this is a commercial piece that doesn't have tremendous great access. There's no access off of the boulevard. You have to come off of that back street to get to it. So our analysis was maybe this is a good fit for high density residential because it's across the street, it's compatible. High density is good next to a park. It's also good next to a school because the kids. And then also it provides that transition, that land use transition between, the single family, medium density, residential, and commercial, because usually you'll have that, low density, medium density, high density, commercial is kind of your transition. So that was the reason why we went with an R3 designation. It wasn't for the buyer. We actually recommended to him that we thought, based on staff, that was a good zoning designation and it was appropriate.
Thank you for that. I think also one of the big deficiencies we have in Caldwell is not enough business. I think if we are able to attract more businesses, that's going to do a lot for our tax base. So being commercial is not a bad thing. And yeah. This access is directly off Smead Parkway, if I'm not mistaken. You said the boulevard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is far away from the boulevard.
Correct. That was her point, that it's away from that area.
Yeah, but it's obvious that the intention for Smead and its various roads right there, it's going to be built up as a big commercial district.
So, if I can throw something in, that would be a perfect spot to do, like apartments or townhouses or something, because of all that employment coming to those businesses right now out there, those big industry businesses. We need labor housing.
So just real quick, any questions? And I think it's a good discussion that we need to do once we close public testimony. Any further questions? Okay, then I'd entertain a motion to close public testimony. Moved by Commissioner Boutros, second by Commissioner Harmon. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Okay. Public testimony is closed.
Yeah,
so good discussion. Continue.
So it just seems like a weird parcel that when they come in and they build something on it, it's going to sit there. And I use the sore thumb thing.
Yeah.
Like it's just sitting there. It's going to look weird. I think we're looking at a potential 3-story multifamily if it's similar to the property in the purple on the zoning map.
Yeah.
I'm predisposed to say, we need commercial, you leave it as commercial, or if a developer wants to purchase it and come before the commission with a specific plan for a development, if they're able to do something that's gonna look good and consistent and compatible with the area around it, then they likely would get approved. But what we're being asked to do is, in order to close the deal, apply a certain zoning designation that may or may not be in the best interest of the citizens of Caldwell. That's my concern.
And I will echo part of your concern. I think it's similar to my same conversation from the last hearing. Is just like there's this, again, it's kind of weird now as is, but that's how it was approved, the current comp plan with that weird thing. So it would make sense, it would seem to make sense that it would turn into commercial to kind of fit. Like, again, I think we're trying to force something to fit that doesn't seem to fit. Like, sure, it's near some high density residential, but that's a technicality, right? Like, there's things near one another. Doesn't mean, like, if we really wanted to be comprehensive about this, why would we not look at the rest of the area and designate some more area as high density or medium density, and really do that in a really strategic way? I think was kind of part of your point that you said, Commissioner Boutros, earlier about kind of being like a task force or whatever. So I'm struggling with this just for the same logic that I use, and I certainly don't think I can change my logic for here when I leverage, like, it just, things have to make sense and flow, and this one just seems to not flow for me.
I would think either commercial. I would lean towards medium if you were gonna pick one high, but I would think commercial. And the commercial around there is all pretty nice looking. Like, my brother lives over there, and so I drive by the streets all the time. They're very nice businesses, Fresco or whatever. So, and Simplot. So, I don't know how good the commercial looks right next to a park, but I'm sure. I think there's the balance of getting commercial really good next. Because I do agree that it should all be the same color, it should all be red, but I don't know, I mean, that baseball field's pretty awesomely used, I think over there, so.
Yeah. Kind of commercial, and how it's implemented, and that's something we can't evaluate until
Speaking
such
to the mic
time.
a little clearer.
Oh, I'm sorry. That depends on the kind of commercial and how it's implemented, and that's something we can't evaluate until such time as a specific development plan comes forward for this property.
And the person you talked to didn't specifically say anything, they're just interested in this vicinity?
Chair and Commissioners, no, I think he definitely had some interest in doing some type of multifamily in this area. Keeping in mind that if he does multifamily, then R3 it requires a special use permit, so it would come back before the board.
Okay.
Other discussion? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
So I will move for denial. Based upon the testimony and evidence in record in this matter, and upon the findings of fact and conclusions of law set forth herein, do hereby determine and move as follows. The request for CPM 23-6 for a comprehensive plan amendment from OS Open Space to High Density Residential, HDR, to include approval of resolution number 152-23 is recommended for denial because of incompatibility with the surrounding area.
And then the second part too, because with the zoning.
And the request for ZON 23-6 to rezone parcel R3528710-4A0 from C2 commercial to R3 high density residential is recommended for denial because of incompatibility with the surrounding area.
Second.
Okay, there was a motion for Commissioner Boutros and a second for Commissioner Larson. Roll call, please.
Zamora?
Yes.
Harmon?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Boutros?
Yes.
All right. So it's a approval for recommendation of denial. So I'll go ahead and close that hearing and move on and open the last public hearing, which is quasi-judicial. ZOA 23-1, a request by the City of Caldwell Planning and Zoning Department to amend Chapter 10, Article 3, Section 10-3-12, pertaining to neighborhood meetings by changing the title to address all public hearing processes, adds language to clarify the purpose of neighborhood meetings and to increase the time frame for conducting a neighborhood meeting prior to submitting an application, adds language to address the mailing and publishing of public hearing notices, adds language to address the physical site posting of public hearing notices by the applicant, and adds language to address the types of public hearing decisions criteria, conditions, hearing records, notice of decision, requests for reconsideration, and appeals. This ordinance will be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law, provides for severability, and repeals conflicting ordinances, resolutions, and orders. Staff report, please.
Chair and Commissioners, Robin Collins, Director, 621 Cleveland Boulevard. Before you today is some proposed zoning ordinance text amendments to Chapter 10, Section 1003-12. Currently, that section of the code just only addresses neighborhood meetings. The purpose of these proposed amendments is to respond to feedback really from citizens about the ambiguity of our codes right now, where they really don't address the total public hearing processes in their entirety. Which is the next bullet point of adding new text to address those public hearing processes for all the different types of land use applications. And then providing a central location within our zoning ordinances. Currently, right now, you go to the comp plan section, it might have some language. You go to the annexation section, it might have some language. And then you go to Chapter 1 in the city code under administrative, and it has language. And then really just to clarify and address some of the language conflicts that we have within our code where there is some contradictory language or just a lot of vagueness in it to make it really clear to the applicants of how they need to go through the process, what they need to do. And right now in our code, there is no language really that addresses reconsiderations at all. And so just trying to provide more transparency to the public and consistency of letting them know what those processes look like. So the first proposed amendment is just for the section title. As I mentioned, this title is just for neighborhood meetings, so we're going to change the title. We're proposing to change it to public hearing process. And if you want to follow along in the staff report on these slides, I do have the pages, so you can follow along if you want to. So that's the only change for that portion right there. The next proposed amendment is on page 11 of your staff report. It's really just to amend the text within the neighborhood meeting section, really clarifying the purpose of the meetings in number 3. When we get a lot of the neighborhood meeting notices, we're noticing that there's a lot of information that's really not being told to the public within those notices, like what the development's going to be or the timelines or whatever. So we're trying to clarify that they really need to be more specific in their neighborhood notices and when they're presenting to the public of what that development's going to entail. And then on number 6, I believe it is, 6A, we are proposing to change the time limit. Right now, you have to have a neighborhood meeting within 2 months of submitting your application. That's been really challenging for a lot of people because of timelines to get your designs done and, different consultants on board. So we'd like to increase that to at least 4 months to give them a little bit of extra time. The next one is on page 12 and 13 of your staff report. This is a brand new subsection addressing mailing and publishing of public hearing notices. So this is just statutory language right out of the Idaho state statutes, but we've broken it down by land use types so people kind of understand the different notifications that are required. So it talks about published notices. It'll have a section on public agency notifications, timing of when those have to be done, when property owners radius notices have to be done and when those have to be sent out, and then what to do if there's mass notification procedures. So that's all new language, just right out of statute. The next one is another subsection that we're adding for physical site posting of public hearing notices. Currently, the way our sites get posted for public hearings is our code enforcement officers are having to go out and do that. We only have one full-time code enforcement officer. She is bombarded. Most other jurisdictions require the applicants to do their own posting, so we're proposing to follow suit with that. So we've added language in here that tells them basically what the sign has to look like, what size it has to be, even to what the font size has to be, what it has to include on it, the number of signs based on acreage, where they have to be placed, when they have to post them. It tells them how they have to provide us with photos and an affidavit and a notarized statement of posting prior to the public, noticing for the public hearings, and then when they have to remove the signage. The next subsection is just for public hearings itself. Again, this is a new subsection. A lot of this is out of the state statutes, but then there are some language in here that kind of correlates with our city code. So it talks about the different type of public hearings, so the quasi-judicial versus legislative. It has the statutory requirements for when you make approval or denials of applications, what you have to include in those approvals and denials. The general approval criteria, and then it'll reference back to the specific sections in the code for specific criteria based on the application type. It'll talk about if you want to impose additional conditions on the applications, and this is specifically for the comprehensive plan. So being able to impose additional conditions so that they are consistent and compliant with the comprehensive plan, how you can go about doing that. And the last part is just maintaining the records of the hearings and the findings, which again is just really statutory requirements. The next one, we talked about maintaining records. So down on statutory requirements for noticing the applicant, it talks about after the hearing bodies make a decision that they have to be notified in writing. It has to explain how and why the decision was made, the relevant facts and findings, and a notice to the applicant of their right to either seek appeal or judicial review, depending on if it's a finding from this board or a finding from city council. So that comes right out of the statutes as well. This is a continuation of that section. It goes into then those statutory requirements for judicial review, that the statute first requires them to seek reconsideration of council decisions before they can seek judicial review. Talks about the timing of that, how that can be done. It also addresses criteria for the city council to help them when they're considering a reconsideration on what they should be looking for to consider that reconsideration. The last part of that section is just text clarifying that type A annexations, which are the ones that we typically see, do not qualify for reconsideration. They are a legislative matter. There's nothing in the statutes that affords them the ability to seek judicial review. Some jurisdictions will choose to let them request reconsideration. The city of Caldwell is choosing to deny them the ability to request reconsideration because it just confuses them, right? Because they request reconsideration, council doesn't have to consider it. They have no judicial review after that. So it confuses them and thinks that they have the ability to seek judicial review. So we're just kind of clarifying that and taking that out of the code. That's really all the amendments. So basically, just these proposed text amendments are consistent with the comprehensive plan policies and goals. Public agencies were notified. They were sent out on June 13th. We did not have to do radius notices. Those are not required when you're doing zoning text amendments as policy for the entire city. Legal ads were published. We have not received any public comments. There was no site posting required. And then we have our first public hearing tonight. Staff analysis and recommendations. The proposed text amendment is necessary for public convenience, necessity, or general welfare. It meets all the requirements of Caldwell City Code and is consistent with the adopted goals and policies of comp plan. Off to the right, you'll see all the applicable code sections that it complies with for regulations. And staff requests the P&Z Commission recommend approval to the City Council of case number ZOA 23-1 for these ordinance text amendments as specified in the findings of facts, conclusions in law, and order of decision. and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank
It's a
you.
mouthful.
Any questions for staff?
Of course.
All right, Commissioner Boutros.
So when I read through this and I thought to myself, wow, am I competent to review this content? Has the city attorney reviewed it and determined that there's no violation of law? I hope so.
Chair and Commissioners, yes, this has all been reviewed and approved by legal counsel.
So you're not looking for a legal review from us, or I don't think you're looking for a procedural review because you're the subject matter experts. And were you looking for an editorial review from us? I don't think so either. So I was a little confused. So I know what you're going to tell me, that the law requires that the commission look at this. But okay, but even so then, I do have some inputs. It occurred to me that if the notice of a neighborhood meeting is placed in the mail with notice longer than 10 days, including mail delivery time, which is currently the language, maybe it could be increased to 15 days to coincide with the time required for the published notice. That gives people a little bit more time. As you know, we occasionally hear from folks who either they say they didn't get a notice or they show up and say, I barely got notice. Is 15 days legal? Is it within statute, or hopefully it's not a violation of statute? And are you willing to increase that notice time to 15 days from 10 days?
Chair and Commissioners, the 10 days that's in here is just the statutory minimum. We always send them out sooner than that. It's open for you can make recommendations to make those changes.
I think I would like to do that if possible. It seems like a pretty minor change. It also makes the task occur concurrently when they have to do public notice. We've also seen instances where public agency notifications, they come back and say, well, we haven't had time to do it. And I actually had a very good discussion with you that I need to share with the other commissioners, that we had an instance where one of the highway districts said they didn't have enough time to review something. And what Robin clarified was that, yeah, they got sent it on time, they just lost it in their mix. Well, I don't know if we need to give them more than 15 days or if they're going to get their act together, but I thought it's worth discussing. They seem to need more time to perform analysis. Is that something that is appropriate to increase the time on, or are you completely satisfied that 15 days is enough?
What I would say is, Chair and Commissioners, I would recommend to keep this ordinance at what those minimums are, like a minimum of 10 days, and then we can do an internal policy. Because if you start putting in code that it has to be, say, 15 days for neighborhood meeting, say we've got a whole staff out that's sick and we're a day late, but we're still meeting the statutory requirement, we're now in violation of our own city code. So
that could happen as well for 10 days. You could say, well, we missed the 10-day notice because somebody was out sick.
True, but statutorily, we would have to cancel that meeting then, and for the neighborhood notices, they would not be able to submit an application. So there's things in place for that statutorily. I suppose you could make it to 15 days. It's up to you. I caution trying to make things so restrictive. Like say for the public agency notifications, we put 15 days minimum in there, but they generally get those notifications about most of the time, because we have application deadlines and the PAM goes out right after that, which is the public agency notice. They usually get it about 3 weeks ahead of time minimum.
So since the public agency notification already statutorily is 15 days, I would be satisfied just getting the neighborhood meeting notice to match that, because somebody is taking action to get a notice out anyway.
And I think the neighborhood meeting's fine because it's not delaying anything once they've submitted their application.
Right.
It just kind of delays them. I wouldn't even say it delays them. They just have to give a little more time to send out the notices.
Right. So then, being an opportunist, and we've got a radius notice of 300 feet. And we've heard complaints about that. And certainly the impact of any development goes well beyond 300 feet. I don't know the history of the 300 feet, if at one time it was actually okay. But if we were to discuss or entertain increasing the radius notification, what would be appropriate? Understanding that when you increase the radius, there's more expense associated with identifying and notifying those property owners. But in the spirit of real transparency, really including the public in this process, is it appropriate to increase that radius?
Chair and Commissioner Boutros, I think it's completely appropriate if you want to do that. The 300-foot, again, is just statutorily minimums. There are jurisdictions that have implemented larger radiuses. Generally, they will look at it based on what the type of development is. And maybe Morgan can speak maybe a little bit more about like what Eagle did, because I don't recall what they did, but they recently just increased theirs not too long ago. And it was based on development, right?
Yes, so in other jurisdictions, some, I would say very few, I'm only aware of the one that has increased it from the 300. The city of Eagle, for example, did that based on zoning. So in the more rural zones, you had a further notice, like 1,500 feet. In the more urban zones where you expect your parcels to be smaller, they had a noticing radius of like 500 feet. And then for annexations over 500 acres, you had to notice the entire city, which was a big lift. So they did make those changes. I would want to point out, I would just want to caution that because very, very, very few jurisdictions have changed from the 300 feet, that is what developers are used to. So we had many instances where it was noticed to 300 feet. The process went through. We thought everyone was noticed. And then after the fact, it was determined that, you know, you missed someone because they thought they were noticing to 300 because that's what they do in every other jurisdiction they work at. The whole hearing was void. They had to go back and start again with a new neighborhood meeting, a new P&Z, and a new city council, just because, you know, you are making your jurisdiction different than, you know, probably every other jurisdiction in the state, other than Eagle. So I just want to point that out as caution, but you certainly can.
Understood. Thank you.
Other questions?
Of course.
So straightforward.
I did too.
The mass notification procedure is obsolete as newspaper circulation declines. I don't have an answer for this one. All I know is nobody reads their newspaper anymore, and I almost would say delete the requirement for posting in newspapers and find something else. Social media is not regulated. It's not under any control. Social media doesn't really meet the intent of public notification, and so I don't really have a good answer. But I know newspapers really aren't the answer anymore.
Good. So the question, I guess my question to that statement is it required by statute for newspaper? I think it is.
These are statutory requirements.
Yeah, and so I understand that. Okay, then I guess we're just going to go past that and until the next revision cycle, when maybe something better than newspapers is a reliable way to communicate with the public. All right, physical site posting sign size requirements should be increased to reflect a minimum text size of 3 inches. And I brought this for you. This is a topic I know something about. Table based on what I've just given staff is a table that correlates text size to viewing distance. So the text sizes that are shown in the example are much too small. Typically for these kinds of signs, if somebody notices a sign, they're going to have to pull onto the shoulder, get out of their vehicle, and walk over to it in order to read it legibly. So if you're gonna put a sign safely away from the edge of a roadway, 30 feet is probably safe. That's the minimum text size that I'm giving you there. If you have to put the sign further away, there are increasing text sizes to go along with that.
Chair and Commissioner, I appreciate that. We hope that people will stop and get out of their cars and go read it, because I really don't want people reading it as they're driving down the road. That would be bad.
Yep.
And that may be the case, and so
Yeah.
we'll let that go.
All right. Other questions?
One really fast one. Similar spot, the proof of posting. I don't want to be drastic, but if they missed it by 3 tries, I thought that we should have them reapply for the application, if they didn't get a notice to people. It was a suggestion, just a recommendation, a thought that, hey, if they're gonna not let the city people know that we're changing stuff on a 3rd try, they just need to start over.
Are you
So-
referring
I
to
don't
something
understand.
specific?
Yeah, section D, proof of posting. So it just says continuance, just will be continued. I don't know how I don't have the wordage because I'm not one of the attorneys, but I don't know how many tries we give them before we say you don't let people know, because it just keeps going to the next continuance. So that was just a recommendation for you guys to possibly look at, because I feel like if there's no weight beside a direction, then you just kind of ignore it.
Chair and Commissioner Larson, I don't disagree with you. We could certainly, we've kind of done that with some of our applications now, like if we're not getting corrections back and it's been a couple times, we'll just remove them off the hearing schedule and won't schedule them again until we get everything we need. So I'm not opposed to putting some kind of language in there for that.
Yeah, and my just thought was three strikes is when you're out is pretty common thought in most people's minds. So my thought, 3 attempts of, hey, you didn't notice anybody, you got to kind of start over.
Okay, Director Collins, did I leave any other statements on that sheet above the table? Or did we address all those?
I think you addressed a mass notification, text size for physical signposting.
Yeah, I think we've got them all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, other questions? Not, then I would entertain a motion to close public testimony.
Moved.
Motion by Commissioner Boutros and second by Commissioner Harmon. All those in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? All right. So we are closed, and now we shall discuss.
So I think it's all great. I just want to include those 2 conditions. One, to increase the notice of neighborhood meetings, to increase the notice of neighborhood meetings to 15 days to match the same as the mail delivery.
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
And I would like to increase the radius notification to 600 feet.
Yeah, I'm good with staying with 300. I think she's really smart about that. I mean, then you're gonna screw up when everybody's used to a certain thing throughout the whole state.
And that's a valid point.
That's the only thing I get it, what you're saying, 100%, but I think you just end up screwing up all the developers.
Until
It's like
people
reinventing the wheel.
Until people get
Yeah,
used
exactly.
to
If
the
some
new
other ones
thing.
start doing it, I think it's great. I mean, that's just my thought.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
think it's a good idea.
I think it's a good idea. Maybe not, I guess as I was thinking about this, my 500 came into mind as opposed to 600, I don't know.
500 would be okay if we got that.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's because regularly we get individuals that come before us to say, I didn't get my notice, and they were at like 301, like they were just outside of the radius, and yet it impacted them. These big developments are going to impact them greatly. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that, Commissioner Larson?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same thought. I really like the idea of being consistent with everybody else, but I mean, just the guy in the front here tonight, I'm a neighbor of one of these people. I don't know how many acres he owned, but I mean, just for the idea of having rural and residential be a little different is the only thought that I would lean towards, because I feel like residential, I was near one of these last time and I got a notice. I didn't come because it wasn't important, but yeah, I feel like if it's for rural, I feel like that would be the instance in which it could be changed, but for residential, I don't think it would need to be adjusted, unless we universally make it 500 as you're thinking.
Well, my thought, I think it would be, staff can answer this, more complicated. If we were to up it to differentiate in zones, probably sounds more complicated than just carte blanche across the city. What are your thoughts?
I would say so, probably, yes.
Yeah, it would seem like, okay, what line on this side of the street, it's 500, it's rural, this side is 300, seems, because what you described from another jurisdiction, that sounds like a lot.
What is it we're gonna propose here?
I was suggesting 500.
Okay.
So if we were to do that, whoever makes the motion, this would be, it sounds like we are moving forward to recommend approval with two additional suggested amendments or.
Well,
Yeah.
I will make that.
Did you have something?
I just wanted to clarify before we went on. I lost the thought. God.
It's because it's so late.
Because we need to leave. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with approving the 500, and then the proof of posting to say, hey, 3 strikes. If you don't notify the public based on section D of
we probably can just
CEC.
recommend an idea so staff.
Yeah,
can
just a
take it.
recommend. Yeah, that was the thought. There were just
So we're
these
not-
are all recommendations that you guys are going to look back and then bring forth.
Okay, because we're gonna articulate the two, other changes.
That
Do-
as well.
do
Yeah.
you wanna write that so that we can read that into the record?
I think you could.
I can just say it.
Make a recommendation that provides like an idea that they can articulate and bring before council.
Because we have to legally let legal decide
They're gonna legal change things
where
up.
the line is of can we actually do this? Because I don't know if that exists.
Okay, so it pertains to what section?
The proof of posting, that after 3 fails to proof to post, there would be you would have to restart your application. I mean, you guys just said just take them off the list. That's also an option.
Right, we would take them off the list, and then everything would have to be renoticed before they're put back on the hearing agenda.
Is it acceptable to read it as proof of posting language refinement?
Yeah. That's fine.
Okay, so I'll make that motion. Based upon the testimony and evidence in record in this matter, and upon the findings of fact and conclusions of law set forth herein, do hereby determine and move as follows. The request ZOA-23-01 to amend C, Chapter 10, Article 3, Section 10-3-12 of the Caldwell City Code is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions of approval as presented, and with notice of neighborhood meetings increased to 15 days, and radius notification increased to 500 feet, and proof of posting language refinement by staff.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Larson, and the motion was originally from Commissioner Boutros. Roll call, please. Yes.
Harmon,
Yes.
Larson, Boutros.
Yes.
All right, with that, we'll close that. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Larson and second from Harmon. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned.
I'm not gonna get
Guess
home.
this trumped the last